Please take your seats. The meeting is about to begin. Remember to speak into the microphone, as this meeting is being recorded for public record. Please stand by. We are going on air in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the March 26th Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee meeting. I am here with my colleague, friend, fellow commissioner, Vice Mayor Tanya Bott. So we do have quorum. I will hand it over to the CFO and the city attorney. I have a lot on the agenda, so we're going to try and be brief and efficient on the items where it is warranted. I myself, I have to leave at 12:15. Hopefully, if we continue to have quorum, you can continue the meeting thereafter, but let's knock out some items.
Good morning. Today's meeting of the Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee has been scheduled in a hybrid format with a quorum of the committee physically present and remaining members, staff, and members of the public appearing either in person or virtually via Zoom. In order to participate in today's meeting virtually, members of the public may dial 1-888-475-4499 and enter the webinar ID, which is 863-6059-5462#, or log into the Zoom app and enter the webinar ID, which again is 863-6059-5462. Any individual wishing to speak on an item must click the raise hand icon if they are using the Zoom app, or dial *9 if you are participating by phone.
Thank you. We have a few announcements. OB3 will be time certain at 10:30. 10:35, time certain will be NB9. NB14 is deferred. OB4 is deferred. NB6 is withdrawn. And items NB7, 10, and 11 will be linked if heard. That's all the announcements, Chair.
Excellent, thank you. Why don't we get to our first time certain, OB3.
OB3, discussion of commercial retail vacancies and potential leasing incentives for owners of vacant properties. OB3.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners, Vice Mayor. I'm Heather Shaw. I'm the Assistant Director for Economic Development. This is the second time we're hearing this item. We heard it last month. It is about potentially doing a vacant storefront registry. As you understand, that we have some vacant storefronts in the city, and we are constantly looking for ways to mitigate that and to fill our storefronts. So one of the elements that was brought up was to do a vacant storefront. We started this in September at a FERC meeting, and then we also talked about it in October and then December, and then last month, February 21st, where I presented to you some of the feedback that we received from 8 other cities that we did some best practice research on, and I believe today is a day to get some of the feedback from some of our business stakeholders who are here today to express their feedback on the vacant storefront registry.
And what is the staff's recommendation on this, Heather?
Well, the administration is looking for direction from you as to whether you want to go forward, but on the administration side, this is a process that will take a lot of administrative time and effort to do so, and that we would have to have some fee associated with it to support the administration of the registration, which is going out and getting a whole listing of the properties and staying on top of them. And this is coming from, as I mentioned, we spoke with 8 other cities who were actually tried to do something similar, and some of the positives and negatives, challenges and opportunities that they saw there.
Yeah, holistically, they essentially were not in favor of this and had a rather negative experience. That's where I start from. Listen, I get it. I think it's one of those things, the concept sounds good, but I've done a lot of very specific case study work on this, and it just has unintended consequences. And when you talk about, a drain on resources, fees associated with it, piggybacking on the conversations that we've had, I don't think I'm going to be supportive of this. I just want to kind of put that out there to manage and mitigate and make our time more efficient. If, you know, let's hear from our stakeholders, but I don't want to prolong something that doesn't need to be.
If I could add, Chair, this item is a discussion item, so if there's not, it doesn't, I don't think, have to go back to commission with a recommendation. I don't believe it does, but I do see Rick moving into action.
No, you can close the item out here if you wish.
Do we have feedback from the Lincoln Road bid? You want to let us know?
I think we're also joined by the Washington Avenue bid as well as the 41st Street bid.
Okay, perfect.
Good morning, Chair.
Emphasize brevity.
Annabelle Yopes, Lincoln Road Business Improvement Director. On behalf of the board and really our landlords and our stakeholders, we don't feel this is a positive step in a relationship and a partnership with the commercial business community. I think there's other efforts that have been done that are really in a positive way, like our 9-month pop-up permit, like looking at cafe abatements for new restaurants. Those are things, initiatives that really impact a positive way the tenant and the landlord. Is the tenant successful, the landlord's going to be successful. I don't think this really drives anything. Having a registry for what is really the outcome? What is the point of having a registry when, what are you going to do with it?
Let's hear from the other bids.
Thank you.
Good morning, Amy Mayhew with the 41st Street bid. Reiterating what Annabelle just said for
Perfect.
all our businesses, and you know, there's better ways we can use our staff's time. to
Perfect.
help us
Troy?
out.
We'll stamp the same thing. However, if we can look into just really expediting the permitting process, I think that would make a huge change.
You
Thanks.
have 7 of us that are united in that and remain steadfast on doing so. Is there anybody that wishes to offer a counter view than the one which we just heard from the bids and city staff? No? Colleagues?
I appreciate where this came from, and having done the research, it seems like it's a program that just doesn't work, and so I'd move to close the discussion with an unfavorable.
Chair, we'll just show the item heard and closed, and we can move on.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's get to NB9 at 10:35 time certain.
MB9, discuss annual evaluation of the parking impact fee. MB9.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll be brief. As I noted in the memo for the Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee, under the LDRs, the Planning Department is required to periodically update the commission on the status of the parking impact fee. And just by way of background, in certain areas of the city, if a development does not meet the minimum parking requirements set forth in that district, they have the ability to pay a fee in lieu of parking. Currently, that fee is $40,000 per parking space. There's also an annual fee in lieu, which is 2% of that, which people can avail themselves of if they're doing a change of use. And the fee is based upon roughly the proportional cost of constructing one parking space in a parking garage. The fee was last updated approximately 13 years ago, and it was based upon the construction cost at that time. Our most recent parking garage that was constructed, when adjusted for CPI, came out to close to $55,000 per space. The administration is not recommending that the one-time fee be raised to $55,000 a space for a couple of reasons. One, we have not seen a lot of people paying the one-time fee, even at $40,000 a space, but more importantly, that would result in a fairly substantial increase in the annual fee in lieu payment. Currently, that's $800 a space per year, and that would go up to roughly $1,100 per year per space, and that primarily affects smaller businesses.
Tom, can I ask you a quick question? When is the last time that we did a holistic reevaluation of our parking requirements for new developments? And where I'm going with this is when I was looking at the RFP, and it's always been in my mind, but when I was looking at the RFP, I walked the parking garages all along the 17th Street corridor, and the new building at 1212, completely empty. I mean, we have floors and floors of parking that are underutilized, And that story played itself out at 5 or 6 different structures. So where I'm going, we're living in a world where, one, we want to incentivize less cars on the road, right? We are not going to cure our traffic problem unless we get people out of the cars. All the other stuff is cute, right? Cops, traffic flow, timing. Unless we get people out of their cars, we will never solve our traffic issues. And to me, it seems like some of the developments, we're kind of shoving parking down people's throats that we are essentially overparked, right? And we hear it up here. People don't want to park in parking garages. Okay, then why do we keep building more and more? I could tell that same story. You saw the videos that I played. So if we've done a comprehensive reevaluation, I look at the new hotel that's built 2 blocks away from here. I think it's the Thompson Hotel on 17th and Washington. Beautiful building, but then they have a 2-story parking podium. It doesn't look aesthetically pleasing. And it's one of those areas that should be one of the most walkable areas of our entire community. And it's one of those things where it's behavioral incentives. If you have parking and we're mandating parking, then the tourists coming here from Ohio flying in, well, they're going to rent their Ford Mustang and park it there. But if they don't have parking, well, they're not going to rent a car, and they just walk everywhere. So I think we're kind of providing perverse incentives in a lot of ways. When is the last time that we kind of reevaluated holistically the parking requirements for new development?
We have not done a comprehensive evaluation of our overall off-street parking requirements since 1989.
Well, it's time.
Can we make a motion here?
I'd make that motion right here now.
If I might to assist, for this item, it seems like an item heard and closed, but what it probably looks like is for a commissioner to perhaps have a new referral, because I believe this would something that should live in the land use committee, not in finance. But if that's the will, I would see someone here maybe picking up a referral for the April commission meeting to refer.
Can you be more specific about that person? No, I'm just kidding. Okay, I want to keep it brief. I'm the one that opened the door from kidding around, sorry.
The chair is
Chair
here.
and vice chair
But
are here.
if it's okay, I think we can just show this item heard and closed, and planning will be probably keeping that referral in its mind.
We do need to take this to the commission, so would it be closed with a recommendation based upon the administration's recommendation not to raise the current?
If it has to go back to the commission, we can show, and I think it'll be unanimous, show the recommendation to keep the fee at the existing.
Before we close this out completely, there are all these parking lots that have tons of vacancies. And so we need to, as a city, I believe, go back to those businesses and say, whoever owns the parking lot, you have X number of spots, you need X minus whatever for your business, but the rest should be available to residents at resident parking rates. And that way, they'll get people coming in and out. Residents will have a place to park where they don't feel like they're paying usurious fees at $15 an hour, and we get cars off the street that are already here. So it's a win-win. Everyone's like, well, I want to be able to park right in front of my place and go in and do my errand. Well, that's lovely when you live in Mayberry, but when I lived in Boston, I had a parking spot attached to my townhouse. And then for the second car, we parked in a municipal garage 5 blocks away. And it was $250 a month. And it sucked when you got home late because your spouse would get the good parking spot and you'd have to walk home in the snow. But that's how it goes. I mean, we live in a city. We don't live in la-la land. And, if we're trying to accomplish a lot of things, getting cars off the roads is one of the biggest drivers of our success. No pun intended. That one actually just came out. So I would very highly encourage, I don't know if it's a referral or I don't know what a referral to this committee.
It would be, I would recommend that it would be that the commissioner pick up this item as a referral to the land use.
Okay, so I'd like to make a referral for this item as well to land use to go out and proactively talk to our business friends around the city. And it's good for them to have people coming in and out of their garage too, because you never know when they'll get hungry and want to pop in and stop at the restaurant.
I think we have our city attorney here to make a
and
note
in
of
fact,
that.
Anecdotal, but Paris actually just this week or at the end of last week had a voter referendum for turning over 500 of their streets and roads into pedestrianized public rights of way, green spaces, things like that. And it actually passed with a 66% approval rating. So they have done the proper urban planning, and a place like Miami Beach, that should be something that the direction that we look to go in.
Kelly Blue City.
So we'll show this, this item is to return the commission with a favorable recommendation to accept the administration's recommendation on the parking impact fee, and the motion was made by
Me.
Commissioner Bott, seconded by
Yeah, I'll second.
Magazine, and we'll show unanimous support on that. And I think that the referral.
And I will work on 2 referrals, one for Commissioner Magazine and one for Commissioner Bond.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Staying on the commercial properties, let's do OB3, discuss leasing incentives for owners of vacant commercial properties.
We did OB3. That was first.
Sorry. Sorry, that was the time certain. NB9. Let's do NB4, the PAL lease.
MB4 is the 47th Street. MB4, discuss potential.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I was looking at NB21, the PAL lease.
Oh, okay.
That should be quick, correct?
Correct. MB21, discuss a proposed lease agreement between the City of Miami Beach, city and or landlord, and the Miami Beach Police Athletic League Incorporated tenant for approximately 13,367 square feet located at 999 11th Street, Miami Beach, Florida premises for a term of 9 years and 364 days, MB21.
Good morning, Commissioners, Vice Chair, Madam Chair, Mr. Chair. Ozzy Dominguez, Division Director of Asset Management for City of Miami Beach. The PAL lease is up for what's currently going to expire now in June 30th of 25. It has no renewal options. So we are proposing to a recommendation to the City Commission for a new lease with PAL for 9 years, 364 days, with the same terms that the current agreement currently carries.
I'll move it.
Yeah, and what is the status for the Geo Bond project there?
I don't run the GeoBond project, but this lease will have a stipulation stating that if the GeoBond project proceeds and a new building is created, a new lease would then be executed for that building, and this one would be coterminous with that.
I will second my colleague, and if there's any way in the new lease that we'd be able to honor the late officer Martineau. I know the PAL was incredibly near and dear to his heart. I think
We have an item to name it after the new facility after him.
in the interim, maybe.
And
Yeah, perfect.
yeah.
The new, I'm sorry, the new lease for the current location, or the new lease for the GeoBond building?
I think
or
there's
both.
an
It's a
item
separate item.
for
So
the new,
and
in the
I'll-
interim.
I'll
Yeah.
defer to my colleague. I think we actually have something that covers both.
Well, we have an item that was intended to cover both, but the existing PAL is already named after someone, so the item that you brought will be limited to the new building.
Because we can't rename unless we,
It's a complicated process.
In some way, if we could do something to honor,
could put a plaque up.
yeah, late officer Martineau's commitment.
We can
Yeah.
work with our Director of Facilities and Fleet for a plaque.
Yeah, we just did a gorgeous one in Pride Park for Joe Tommeasley that the Parks Department worked on, and maybe we can take a cue from that and work with Deb Martineau and really do something gorgeous.
Thank you.
You know, maybe something to consider, it's 11th Street, that's there. Maybe 11th Street from Meridian to Alton might be appropriate if the facility is already named for someone.
Isn't 11th Street Nancy Liebman?
Oh,
I believe
think
that's
maybe-
maybe already.
oh, okay,
Yeah, I think-
sorry, didn't realize that. Okay.
It's the art, it'll be the Art and Nancy show.
All right.
The Chair will show this item, return to Commissioner with a favorable recommendation of the proposed lease with PAL. Commissioner Bott and Chair Magazine a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All in favor? Show it 3-0. Thank you.
Ozzy, perhaps NB 18 is you, the Polo Park temporary lighting? Is that correct or not?
That's parts.
Okay, but let's hear that. I think that should be quick. I'll let you tee it up, Jason, but essentially a pilot program at no cost. And then we'll get the feedback from that pilot program if we move forward, and it'll have a financial impact.
Discuss the allocation of funding for the installation of temporary lighting at Polo Park basketball courts, NB 18.
Tom?
You want Sure,
Can I just sum that up? No cost here for the pilot program?
Yeah, I was at the park. There's no cost for it. We're going to use our towers. We'll have a park ranger on roving for it, and after 6 months, we'll reevaluate it.
Anybody
Once the
wanna make a
time
motion?
change, we're going to put it in.
Perfect.
I'll move it.
And
I'll
one of the
second.
reasons why I put this on the.
This is incredible, Alex, yeah.
Yeah,
Commissioner.
No, Alex is just fine. One of the reasons why we put this on the agenda like this is because there were concerns that as, time changes throughout the year, if you have permanent lighting, it becomes an issue of the lights being on too late or not. The temporary lighting helps us address the concerns of the neighbors during certain times of the year while making sure that they have the lighting during the other times of the year when they really do need it because of the time changes.
So we'll do a 6-month pilot in November when the time changes, and then we'll reevaluate after 6 months.
Can I ask a quick question? This seems really dumb, but I had, at my many times aforementioned little townhouse on Parkview Island, I used to have solar lights in the front yard. And when it got dark, they went on, and when it got light, they went off. Why couldn't we do that? Solar powered.
We do have on the building facing the lights, 4 solar powered lights, and it's just not light enough because it only has a certain area. It doesn't go out far enough.
Right, but, so we're using existing lights that we have and just programming them differently.
Well, we have solar lighting now on the.
No, I know, but so to accomplish the additional lighting, we're taking additional lighting that we already have and we're programming it to turn on and off differently?
We're having one of our towers that I went there and we tried it with people playing, and it doesn't interfere with them playing. It's a tower light that will turn on, then we'll turn it off. So it's existing resources, and then we'll have a park ranger on roving there.
So we can show this item to return to Commissioner with a favorable recommendation to install temporary lighting at Polo Park basketball fields, courts, I'm sorry. Making the motion?
I think Commissioner Bott did, and I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues.
Yep, thank you. Do we have perhaps Lizette here for NB 15? This is time sensitive as this, I believe, is an event that's coming up this weekend and is essentially historically been done for the past 10 or 15 years. Great event. As we're looking to program out of spring break, this has always attracted such a nice and health and wellness focused crowd.
So we have a discuss request for city sponsorship and waiver of city special event permit fees pursuant to section 12-7 of the city code for the model volleyball event scheduled to take place in Loomis Park beachfront from March 29th through March 30th, 2025, MB 15.
So we're actually not paying or giving any revenue, we're just waiving special event fees, correct?
Yes, good morning. Francis Vicio, Assistant Director, Tourism and Culture. It would be a waiver of fees. The only thing is that it would be retroactive. This would go to commission, and then the money would be given back because the event is this weekend, so they have to pay the fees for this weekend.
And how many years have they been in our city?
Over 14.
Okay, excellent. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Okay, so we'll show this item to return to commission with a favorable recommendation for the waiver of the special event permit fees as requested.
Retroactive.
Retroactively. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Right. Show a 3-0. Thank you.
But we hear NB3, discuss creation of a foundation. I don't want to steer your job, Mr. CFO.
MB3, discuss the creation of a foundation focused on soliciting donations of works of art for the city's permanent art in public places collection and/or temporary exhibitions. MB3.
Good morning. I'll just tee it up. Again, Francis Vicio, Assistant Director of Tourism and Culture. So this item is requesting, the item sponsor is requesting that FERC discuss the potential benefits, structure, and feasibility of creating a foundation with specific focus on soliciting and accepting donations and works of art from individuals, corporations, and benefactors. So as you see in the memo, the city has been long-term committed to enhancing public spaces through art in public places. Currently, we do have the Art in Public Places Ordinance, which has the mandate of the Art in Public Places Committee. So currently, the committee, along with the Tourism and Culture Department, has the powers and duties of oversight, review, and acceptance of the artwork. So in today's discussion, Key issues to consider are the foundation structure, funding and management, integration with the city's ARPP program, and community and economic benefits. Staff has communicated with the counties, Art and Public Places, the Cultural Affairs Department. They currently don't have any such structure of accepting donations. They don't know of any other municipality that has one either. But those are things to consider. The administration's recommendation, if the committee decides this is something that we want to move forward with, that the committee just be structured to accept donations. So then we can then vet the artwork.
Yep, we've seen such a generational influx of wealth into our city through some of the most affluent individuals in the entire world that also oftentimes go hand in hand with focus and dedication to the arts. If you look in places like New York City, along the High Line, a lot of the things that are the most special arts and public works in the world are often at the benefit. We're beneficiaries from very wealthy, affluent individuals, and it seems short-sighted or silly not to take advantage and set up some sort of program where Miami Beach can be a beneficiary of the same. So I'm certainly supportive of this.
Yeah, you know, I love this idea. I think Joe is, Commissioner Magazine is absolutely right on the money, no pun intended, about so much wealth moving into the city and people stepping up to help do things that they care about. And this is something that is possible. You know, we would need to make sure that there are very clear guidelines and nobody runs afoul of any ethics issues, that there's no quid pro quo intimated or expected, et cetera, et cetera. So as long as the city attorney feels that that can be structured in such a manner that it is completely separate from anybody in office, running for office, et cetera, I would be very much in favor of this.
Excellent.
Yeah, we would definitely work with the city attorney's office for the structure of the committee. Just for moving forward, is the committee's recommendation aligned with the administration's to just solicit funding? Is that okay, or?
Is there something else that we would be missing?
Otherwise, because it also talks about soliciting actual artwork, but there are, yeah.
And I think the concern of the administration was that we have an Art and Public Places committee that's already set up to specifically do that. So I think the recommendation is listed in the conclusion of the item is that if this foundation or committee, whatever legally we had determined to call it, be recommended that it would be for the solicitation of donations should be limited to funding. So
I would support the administration's recommendation for funding only.
We can show a motion by Commissioner Bott to return to commission with a favorable recommendation for the creation of a foundation or committee to solicit funding donations for public art.
Excellent. Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, we'll show it passed 3-0. Thank you.
How about we get to NB 12, expansion of the Parks and Rec Health and Wellness area, referred to as Muscle Beach. I'll let you tee this up, Mr. CFO, but where came up with this idea down in the Ocean Drive area, I looked at it, I said, what do we get right? What do we get wrong? I think that Muscle Beach activation, when you go down there on a weekend, that's probably one of the best things that we've done in the city. It attracts people, residents, tourists, men, women, young, old, everything. It's a great activation. It's synonymous with what Miami Beach is. And I've said very often that when we do things in Miami Beach, I want us to start doing things that are world-class, right? Truly world-class, where when you Google the best outdoor health and wellness and park area in the world, Miami Beach is at the top of the list, and I think that's what my standard for excellence is. So, Mr. CFO, if you want to tee that up.
Sure. MB 12, discuss the expansion of Muscle Beach and Loomis Park Spoil area to include more health, wellness, and sports activities. MB 12, and as a note, Commissioner Suarez has requested to become a co-sponsor.
I'll be a co-sponsor.
Well, I'm not sure if you're actually the fitness commissioner, but
I'm not the fitness commissioner.
I guess we can allow it.
The record.
I should aspire to be a fitness
I'm the Blue Zones Commissioner, and I would like to be a co-sponsor as well.
There you go.
So
We will
guess,
show
Tom,
everyone as a
right now,
co-sponsor.
it's a
here.
great idea, right? A great idea. I
need
think
more
we all
fitness.
embrace, but then it comes down to funding, right? We talk about our budget being in a tight year, we're not going to have a huge surplus. We all just got a letter to commission the other day saying that our expected surplus is even projected to be less than what we originally envisioned. So then it comes down to, how do we fund this? I don't want this being one of these pie in the sky things that we hold out there for years. What are some other, and perhaps this is to our CFO as well, other ideas for funding, sponsorships, whether, you know, we're rightfully so focusing on a lot of expense, highlighting a lot of expense issues that we face on our budget, but an income statement is two sides, right? Revenue and expenses. We also have to talk about how to raise more revenue. And what I'd like to do is, one, find sponsorships for this. Are we talking a couple $1 million of CapEx, I assume? And then also, if there's anything that we can do in that area that provides revenue into the city that can be used to really kickstart this program.
Yeah, we're in favor of the sponsorship also, and then we're looking at donations. We may have something to expand Muscle Beach a little, and we're also looking to expand Muscle Beach in the North End also.
Is the North End a separate item?
Yeah.
No, separate.
Yeah. So maybe let's move this certainly with a favorable recommendation, but I would task staff to work on identifying, one, what sponsorships would look like. Is that some sort of naming rights? Is it, I don't know, one of our food and beverage partners like Red Bull having a trash receptacle that looks like a Red Bull can? I don't know what the answer is, but just kicking out some ideas, be creative, come back with how we can raise money to essentially jumpstart this program, because I don't want this hanging out there for years and years, just kind of in this never-ending budget cycle.
If I can, Chair, is the interest here to send this to commission to direct the administration to begin identifying sponsors that would fully fund the expansion of this project? Just wanted to know, kind of, we need to have just clear direction on that. So we could show this item return to commission with a favorable recommendation to direct the administration to engage with sponsorship opportunities to expand the Muscle Beach at Loomis Park.
If I may, so we don't yet know what the Blue Zone's proposal recommendations will be when they come back. We're getting that in the next, like in May, basically. And I'm sure that this is something that could be folded into that. And the reason I mention it is not to slow anything down, but part of what the Blue Zones program is for any kind of CapEx expenditures, we try to find outside partners. So it's not that we source them from our budget, but we find partners who are like, oh, really, more exercise equipment throughout the city? I'm totally behind that. And so I would definitely start whatever you're going to do, but also we can fold it into holistically a larger project and maybe find a bigger sponsor that way. So we can have that conversation offline in the next few days when I learn a little bit more from the phone call I'm having about this very topic tomorrow.
Excellent.
So we'll show.
Commissioner Suarez.
What would a sponsorship look like as far as like the branding? I mean, what are you envisioning?
Anything. Like I said, it could be I'm going to use Red Bull because they're part of the Pepsi sponsorship. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have one of our sponsorships up in one of the parks, and it was JetBlue. It's just a little sign on one of the playground equipment. So we'll have to look. We'll explore that. We don't want to make a big advertisement.
Yeah,
we want to make it as little as possible.
I think it would kind of lose the classiness of what it is now. If there's like a big logo of Red Bull on like the container where we keep the muscle equipment.
We'll look at to make it as is to fit in with the playgrounds and stuff, not to make a big advertising thing. We'll just look into bringing some ideas back.
And if I can, this item goes back to commission. The recommendation, the administration would begin that exploration. It would come back to commission. So whatever the final outcome would come back to commission for approval.
Yeah, and I certainly second that, right? Strike a fine balance between, if somebody's going to spend millions of dollars sponsoring, they're going to want something, but I don't want it to be a cheesy commercialization. That's such a natural, beautiful area. We want it to remain that way. In fact, it's not just about adding the enhanced equipment and area. I want something that is also more aesthetically pleasing down there. So, a 50-foot Red Bull can certainly isn't in line with that.
So for some historical context, I don't remember, this was in 2017, 2018, somebody in the administration might remember, but there was conversation about naming rights for things like the convention center and the band shell, and it was not well received at all. And while those things were on a much grander scale, we don't want people to think that we're saying, hey, we can like call it the Red Bull Muscle Beach imprint. It's, you know, it would be a small, it would, you know, they would be doing a solid, basically, and it would be a small thing, and we could refer to it in our newsletters if we're having a special event there. You know, the city is meeting at the Red Bull Muscle Beach site to do X, Y, and Z. We'd be happy to do that sort of thing, but, you know, that's kind of the limit.
I mean, another idea would be, you know, the equipment itself, maybe get a sponsorship from like Rogue. You know, they give all sorts of barbells, dumbbells, plates, and, you know, maybe we have an exclusive agreement with them, and whenever the equipment is faded out, they replace it at free of cost, because everyone comes and they see the equipment.
If I may. I remember back in 2012, in fact, Mayor Bauer's in the audience, and I think she was mayor at the time, and Carnival had come wanting to do naming rights at South Point Park. I don't know if you remember that. And it became very controversial. I like the idea of expanding Muscle Beach. I think it is one of the most positive activations that we have, and it's in the direction of health and wellness that our city is moving in. And by the way, I just got back from Tallahassee. Everyone is talking about the direction our city is going in, and I think this entire commission should feel very proud of that. Having said that, I always get concerned about putting corporate names on our public assets, even if it comes through a contribution to improve those areas. So that's something I just will be hesitant about. When we had it with the convention center, I think it was one of my first meetings that they were considering an item to the convention center. I don't know, they wanted to call it Royal Caribbean. That's what it was. The Royal Caribbean.
It was Norwegian.
Or Norwegian. It was one of the cruise lines. They wanted to do a sponsorship at the convention center. The community came out very loudly against putting a name on one of our public assets. So that's not something I would be inclined to support. I just want to say that for purposes of transparency. Yeah. But we have a lot of people that do business in this city, that do commit to doing public benefits, who might be willing to make a public benefit contribution to expand this park without having to brand it in their favor or have some sort of, you know, naming right tied to it. And that's something that we should explore.
We'll look into the most tasteful thing, and then we'll get back to you.
Yep, I'm open-ended on this. No preconceived notion of where this comes out. I just, you know, we'd be silly to sit here and just say, okay, we're going to find a few $1 million at the end of this year for the budget. So I like Commissioner Suarez's idea about the fitness equipment being donated. If we're going to do a paddle court, maybe get one of the local operators. They put their name on it. They don't operate it, but it's, you know, the reserve courts, you know, because there's so much foot traffic there, whatever it could be.
Yeah, we had somebody already interested in donating something to Loomis, to the Muscle Beach, so we're just trying to work out. You know, we're trying to work it out.
Love those decision of finance. Okay, perfect. So
we'll show Commissioner Bott made the motion and Chair Magazine is the second. All in favor?
Yeah.
All right.
Wait a minute. Oh, my goodness.
You don't have the microphone. I have it.
Wait a minute. It's the ghost of Christmas past.
Is this on?
It is on.
Okay.
Not that you need a microphone.
I missed part of it, so excuse me. Is this going out to bid? It's already a done deal? Is it done by Parks and Recreation?
It's
just a discussion.
Discussion at this point.
What?
It's just a discussion at this point.
Oh. Is it going to be free for the residents of Miami Beach?
It's like
100%.
Because I have a problem when you charge the residents of Miami Beach to use something in public land, no matter if it's a paddleball or... And the problem when you go out and get somebody to come in a private setting, they want to make money. And they want to make money at the expense of residents of Miami Beach. And I have a big problem with that. I know that business now is more important than residents, but to me, the residents were always very important.
Muscle Beach will always be free.
As long as it's free, I'm okay with it.
I don't even think it was something we would ever entertain.
Yeah, we would never in a million years contemplate
Thanks. Thanks, Tom.
Commissioner, we have public comment.
That's right. That's why you don't come.
Commissioner, there's a public comment.
Sure.
There's two.
Well, it is now.
Larry Schaefer, please unmute yourself.
Larry, we're going in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Mitch Novick, please unmute yourself.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Interesting conversation. I want to give you a little history of what was the 9th Street workout station. What bothers me, what I believe the city got wrong with Muscle Beach is its name. In Venice, it denotes often a tawdry place. And the name 9th Street Workout Station certainly provides where it's located. And that's what it had been called for years. And going back a little further, in the 80s, all that consisted of that area was a pull-up bar. Hurricane Andrew knocked that down. And it wasn't until I contacted Lynn Bernstein, who was with Miami Beach Development Corporation running the Ocean Drive bid at that time, that things morphed into what it is today. So if anything, I would urge you to consider putting back the name, the 9th Street Workout Station. Although informal, it's special, or at least in my mind, it was special. And I wouldn't write off naming rights. I think of the Kaseya Center. If you do it for a year or two, perhaps we could get several $100,000 for a minimal size sign. And that might be something to generate revenue, because Lord only knows how much we're paying and how much we're losing. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Mitch. And, when I think we're all envisioning this, it's not just that workout area. I think this is comprehensively along that entire Loomis Park, almost from 5th Street all the way to 9th or 10th Street. So perhaps we look at what we call that comprehensive health and wellness area. But I think there's a motion on the table to move this along.
We already voted.
Already voted, perfect. So let's move on to maybe a similar item, something that I absolutely love, but then it just comes down to where are we going to find the funding for it, and maybe we could think about things just as unique. But OB5, the Children's Park on Lincoln Road. Commissioner Suarez, turn this over to you.
Okay. Let me announce the item. OB5, discuss the desirability, feasibility, and cost of constructing a children's park at the Euclid Circle on Lincoln Road. OB5.
Good morning, David Gomez, Director of Capital Improvements for the city. This item has been around for a while. It actually was looked at as part of the original design for the Lincoln Road Improvement Project in 22, where the designer for Lincoln Road looked at several options and made a couple of proposals. In November of last year, the Facilities Department came to the committee and presented some options. As a result of that, we went back to the designer and asked them to reevaluate and look at potential locations as well as options. They did do that. They prepared an analysis and a proposal or a recommendation. Their recommended location continues to be in the Euclid Avenue right-of-way south of the existing oval, which also has the added benefit of being able to incorporate that without impacting the Lincoln Road project. So that can be done separately or at a later time, however the committee feels is appropriate.
And where would it start, just south of the Euclid Circle?
It would start essentially at the building line on the south side of Lincoln Road, between there and the street.
Do you have a visual?
It was attached to the memo. I didn't bring a digital.
Any way we could put it up on the screen so everyone can see? Not mine. If you don't have it in digital format,
I didn't bring the digital.
Okay. Well, I think we talked about this, I think a while ago, where, we wanted to see a world-class park on Lincoln Road. I think it's a great idea. If you're bringing your family, it's an attraction. Families come there, they shop, have their kids play. I think it'd be a great amenity to have. And in particular in that area, there is issues there with like homeless people like sleeping, and so I think if you have a park there, there's a certain distance that for example, sex offenders can't be next to a kids park, so we have a buffer now if that was to go into place.
Excuse me, through the chair, the one detail I didn't provide is that the consultant has provided an estimate of between $4 and $6 million for the playground.
I love the idea. Listen, it's what I looked for when we did the RFP is we have to face reality. People aren't going to travel to a commercial corridor just to go to Forever 21 and the Cheesecake Factory anymore, right? So you need to bring experiences that are going to bring them there, and then they essentially frequent our retail after that. And what better way to bring families than to have just an absolutely world-class playground? Or if they are just as tourists and strolling down Lincoln Road, we need more experiences there because they're essentially dining and dashing, right? They eat and they leave. There's nothing to do there. There's no experiences to live. When you look at the design district, there's all types of kind of programming there that is also very aesthetically pleasing as well. It just enhances the entire appeal of the area. So this is something I'm incredibly supportive of, but I do think that we kind of get back into that same budget discussion and, can we find some sort of dedicated revenue source for this where this isn't just a pie in the sky dream, that gets kicked down every budget cycle for the next 5 years.
Through the chair. This might be another great opportunity for Blue Zone's sponsorship, partnership with somebody who recognizes the value of this because it's getting kids out and about and their families walking, and this may be another thing. I'm not saying this is the way to go, but this is something to sort of put in the Blue Zone's bucket as a possible source of funding.
Through the chair, so Jason, any ideas on possible sources of funding?
Well, this would be something that would have to be through the city's general fund or effectively probably through the pay-go millage that we have. So the question I was going to have was, is this something that we want to return to the commission with a favorable recommendation to include? And it's really about a timing. When the administration adds a new capital project, we have a 5-year CIP. So new projects are added in the 5th year, and they move up for, through consideration, because there's projects that have lived or do we want to move it to the top of the order and for it to be added as a capital project for consideration of the 26 budget process? And do we want to make it a priority in the 26 budget process, which would obviously bump it up, further up the list, in the competition. So you could either add it to the CIP, which would just add it into the 5th year of our capital improvement program, which is a standard best practice. Do we add it as a project to be considered during the 26 project program? So I think those are the two things that you have in front of you. And then, we go through the process to see where we could allocate, appropriate funding.
Yeah, I love it. And perhaps, listen, Commissioner Fernandez, I heard your words in Tallahassee that were much needed. And we're essentially facing an issue here where we need to put our money where our mouth is, or else the state's going to do it for us with being committed to providing residential housing. And we've talked about the LDRs on Lincoln Road. Perhaps a public benefit of that could be funding for this park. We talk about the direction we're going in as a city. We can help revitalize a dying or struggling commercial corridor. We can add ourselves the housing that if we don't do so, Tallahassee is going to swing the pendulum much further the other way in doing so, and we could do it in a family-friendly way where we're getting things like parks and playgrounds and health and wellness activation and no micro units. So if we want to be big boys and gals and make these decisions ourselves, we need to show that we have the fortitude to do so.
Through the chair, you made a good point. We're going to have, assuming that it passes on Lincoln Road, a residential upzoning. Can we make it based, any new residential development, and maybe this is a question for the city attorney, they have to pay an impact fee for certain CIP projects like this on Lincoln Road.
And before the city attorney, if I could, I love the idea. I actually went back and I watched, I think it was in October of 2016, and we talk about the different direction we're taking as a commission. They actually added LDRs to add hotels and no parking for office on Lincoln Road, right? We're actually doing residential housing, but as part of that actually was some sort of almost art in public places impact fee that would be paid. Here we'd be looking for something similar.
I think we could work on potentially creating incentives for the creation of a public park, for example. I don't believe that it would be appropriate to charge an impact fee in connection with the legislation that you all are discussing. But we can look into creating incentives, maybe as part of that legislation, to create public spaces, green spaces, et cetera.
Let me ask a question, if I may, Mr. Chair. So when, and it's a shame that we don't have our planning department here, when applications are considered, usually there's a review to see, you know, is there enough green space available to accommodate this? Is there enough, you know, do the sewers have enough capacity to accommodate this and all that type of stuff? Can we have, as we create these overlays, for Lincoln Road East, Lincoln Road West, could we have as part of the overlay, a park requirement that, you know, as we can build upon this as we provide green space. So you really can't maximize on the zoning that we're creating for as long as you don't have enough green space, so that we're creating the incentive for whoever comes forward to create this or to use this zoning, that they actually have to build that green space.
Okay. Incentive.
Right, an incentive, but not through an impact fee, but saying, and I need the city attorney to be listening, and I'm sorry, because I'm asking the city attorney a question. If, as part of the zoning legislation, that the zoning can only be used as the green space is available. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think we're probably talking similar ideas, that you're going to create incentives or provide the zoning will apply if you comply with certain green space requirements. I think we're talking the same thing.
So how do we position ourselves for this? Where are we allowed to say, I guess we don't want to put the cart before the horse. You know, I think the best way to really move this project, $4 to $6 million is a lot. We're not going to be able to just come out of thin air and fund it. I mean, the values are shrinking, as the chair said. Can we, assuming that Lincoln Road East and West gets approved, can we have an open solicitation to developers to say, look, if you build this, if you help fund this park or infrastructure, then you get an extra, I don't know, 0.25 FAR, or maybe an extra floor.
If I may, just to assist, and if I'm off, please let me know. On this item about the park, maybe what this is this returns to the commission, favorable recommendation be included in our CIP, which we would put it in the 5th year. It can move at any time. And then it sounds like we're on another separate referral to land use. Land use is getting some props today.
So we just hear it here.
The
Lincoln Road item here.
Or you to talk about the Lincoln Road, incentives and things like you're talking about to help support parks. And maybe the city attorney thinks I'm off here, but I think that may be the best prudent approach on this item, is to have this go. We added in the CIP, so it lives and it exists. And then separately, you have a referral about how to fund that, maybe through some of these incentives that you guys are talking about at land use.
And I just want to be clear, from my perspective, what I'm just thinking, just because maybe I didn't describe it well, you know, the zoning is providing, you know, maximum height and maximum FAR, but you don't unlock the full potential of that height and FAR that we're approving until the green space that is needed is available. You might have some extra height and FAR with the existing green space, but you don't get the full amount of the green space is not unlocked until this green area is put in there.
Yeah, I love it. Commissioner Rosie Gonzalez.
I think before this can be approved, it has to have a referral back to the commission to go to the Historic Preservation Board so that they can opine on this design, which is really iconic, Morris Lapidus, right there in the center of Euclid Circle. I have, no problem making that referral, but that's why we have the Preservation Board. That's really where it needs to go before we make any kind of opinion on this, and that's what we've always been as a community, is protecting our iconic designers like Morris Lapidus. So I would like an opinion from the board prior to us making any other decisions.
So if I understand correctly, though, this isn't actually on the circle. I think you got the feedback that that was the historic part of the master plan.
Correct.
So this is actually kind of over in the archery.
Just south of it.
Which actually brings in our good friend Mel, while you're chomping a
Morning.
bit to get here. Give me 1 second before we get to you, Mel, but I don't think Commissioner Rosie Gonzalez that I wish we had the design renderings, that the Euclid Circle is actually being affected here. I think Commissioner Suarez was he recognized the historic importance of that, so this will actually be shifted south into that artery by the Lincoln Center.
If I can,
Can
Chair.
I just opine one thing? When you look at the Secretary of the Interior's definition of historic preservation, it has to fit within the context. Now, I have no problem approving something, but it's going to have to be a very special type of Art Deco park, and they might decide that that ruins the context of the circle. So I just would like to I think it's very important that we get that opinion prior to referring this. I mean, I don't have a vote here on this committee, but I do know that at the full commission, I will ask for it to be referred to the Historic Preservation
Yeah,
Board.
I'll make that motion. I don't think it's, or that friendly amendment, I don't think it's any way detracting from what's going on here. I think it's just making sure it's compatible with the overall historic area. And while it's not technically a historic Morris Lapidus structure per se, it is still contributing to that jewel of our city, that it needs a little gussying up. And so why would we do something that doesn't complement? It doesn't have to be a recreation of anything, but it does have to be designed in a way that complements, with an E, not an I. It's additive in its design and expression to the vibe that's there. So it's not a way of derailing, it's a way of enhancing.
If I can ask one question, oh, sorry.
Through the chair, I believe that any project that goes there has to go to the HPB anyways, by default. It's in a historic district, and I think whenever we make an enhancement to a park that's in a historic district, it has to go to the HPB, so I think it's a moot point.
If I can add on.
They might say no, and so we might want to refer it to the HPB, and then as an opinion before we move forward. I mean, that's what I'm going to vote for at the full commission. And I think you've seen that Commissioner Bott also supports that. I don't know how the Commissioner Fernandez or Commissioner Dominguez feels, but as a body, we should vote to refer it to the HPB, get their opinion, and have it come back to us, because that's the expert opinion.
If I may, through the chair, the HPB does not have an advisory process, so they are looking at actually 30% developed drawings. We're nowhere near that point. It would go through HPB as we develop drawings sometime in the future once we find the funding.
If I can, and that's what I was trying to add in here, is as this motion is to be added to our capital improvement program, which is in the 5th year. We're years away from that process unless it gets accelerated, funded, and we begin the design process, which then process-wise, it would go to HPB.
Wait, I'd like to ask the city attorney, does the HPB not have an advisory process? Because throughout my political career, we have referred items to the HPB to get their opinion. So I don't really understand where that's coming from.
If I may, through the chair, DRB does have an advisory process, and that's mostly used for public works projects and right-of-way projects. The HPB does not have an advisory process. Through the DRB process, they would make a recommendation, it would come back to commission. Commission would elect to either accept those recommendations or overrule them. with HPB, that process doesn't exist.
How can we vote on a location without actually asking the HPB if they approve of that location within the context of the historic district?
If I may, through the chair, I have seen at least one instance in the recent past where the Land Use Committee referred a matter to the HPB for an advisory opinion. So with respect to Mr. Gomez, I do believe that the HPB can provide an advisory opinion if that's the will of the body.
Yeah. Mel, do you want to speak?
Good morning.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's on.
I'm not at all comfortable sometimes coming before the commission opposing anything. I much prefer to, as a member of this community, to be here to support incentives. And I do appreciate the work and the intention that the members of the commission have to deal with the issues on Lincoln Road. Let me go back, if I can, just a bit. There was during the, I think it was the reign of Mayor Bauer, I came up with the idea of creating a plaza on the extension of Euclid Avenue, which was at that time a truck stop in front of the Lincoln Center, the building that I created there. That was originally a 66-room hotel when myself and my partners purchased the building. It was a little more than a slum. Eventually, we completely reconfigured the building into steel and concrete and made it into an office structure. It is now quite a remarkable building, and we have a significant art gallery there and some very, very interesting and young businesses there that tend to do very well, even as a office building. I originally had a deal with the city where I would be putting in myself and JMAC Development would be managing the development, which we did, and we were going to do basically a 50-50 deal. Over the development period, it turned out that actually we put in somewhere near 70 to 75% of the cost of developing that plaza. The agreement that I had, and frankly, I think it was at the insistence of Mayor Bauer at the time, was that nothing go on that plaza except for the landscaping and the design. The architects that designed the black and white, at that time concrete, would remain as just a plaza. And accordingly, I agreed in the agreement, and it's in our agreement with the city, that there would be, and the city, I think, passed a resolution, there would be no use of any type of commercial development there, and there certainly would not be any type of a use for outdoor cafes. And we lived with that and agreed to that at the time with the expectation that the building would be utilized, of course, as we did, that there would be no room there and there would be no allowance of anything on the plaza in order to keep it as a plaza. In order to enhance the building itself. As a result, I also, just to show where things go, I put in an extra $100,000 into the deal to have colored concrete poured into the lines that we did. There were very exotic stripes, and instead of stripes, there were movements in the ground that the architect designed. And I insisted that we use colored concrete, black concrete and white concrete, so it would never have to be painted. And all it would have to be would be sealed over periods of time. Well, that didn't last too long because the first time that the city had the opportunity to seal it, they used to seal it with a pigment. And if you look at the street now, it looks awful. So this is the kind of, because it was never really properly taken care of. And although I insisted not to use the pigment, not to use the color, they did it anyway. And if you take a look at it now,
let's
it's
talk
awful.
more offline.
I'm just trying to give you a little bit of background. I'll get to the point is that
let's wrap up.
Okay. I also am a
be
member
years in the
of
making.
the board of the bid, and spent many years creating it. The bid was never, this is a personal matter, this is not coming from the bid itself, but I just am a member of the board. I would have liked to have seen this design and like to have dealt with this design, and my colleagues and stakeholders on the street, I think, should also be a part of it.
100% you will be, right? I mean, this is conceptual that we're moving forward. Your stakeholders, both property owner and on the Lincoln Road bid, you're not going to wake up tomorrow and we have the playground equipment out there. This is, it's not funded. This is a conceptual design. We're going to include this is going to stop at the HPB and get stakeholder involvement. But if you go up to the design district and things like that, it'd be hard to argue that the playground equipment there does anything other than be.
Commissioner, I'm not sure we can identify Lincoln Road with the design district. There are other, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to have a designer come in, James Conner came in, and designed a street to enhance Lincoln Road. We haven't done anything yet. The circle has not been activated at all in accordance with the James Conner project. It just hasn't been done yet. And here we are working on other things when we should be concentrating on finishing what we already created. If you want to see Lincoln Road succeed, there's two things you have to do. First of all, do the James Conner project. The center that he created for Lincoln Road Circle should be activated. It should be done. And quite frankly, the second thing is to expedite the permitting processes on Lincoln Road. I think Troy from the Washington Avenue bid just mentioned it.
We're in agreement with that.
That is the issues.
Commissioner.
The park is.
And then we're going to move on with this because I think we're just beating a dead horse here. We're going to move this along with a favorable recommendation. And I believe that before anything would ever move forward, it would have to stop before the HPB. So we're kind of talking in circles here.
If I can, to close this is.
Commissioner Bott, real quick.
Sorry.
So David, offline, it doesn't have to be now, but can you provide an update as to where we are with the James Comer project that is supposed to be done? Is it a geo bond? Where are we? And it doesn't have to be here and now, but we definitely need to have an update on that.
Very quickly, the connector streets are already under contract. That's
what I thought.
Meridian and Drexel. The main spine for Lincoln Road, we're supposed to be going out to bid in May with award in October.
Excellent.
Okay, so Esme has a few things to say about this project. So I would like to move it, but with the stop at HPB.
Which is already baked in, correct?
As part of the design process, if you want that input before we
Yes.
put it on the capital projects, we can do
Yes.
that as well.
With that friendly amendment. It's a different conversation.
If I can, so I think the nuance here is, would it go at its appropriate time, which might be 5 years from now, when the design's being done, or is this to include a current referral to the HPB for an advisory opinion?
That's fine. I'll be completely upfront about where I stand. I spoke at the North Beach PTA 2 weeks ago. I spoke, my daughter goes to South Point. They go, what the hell is happening with Lincoln Road? What is happening? Why can't we visit there anymore? I'm not going to go there and say, you know what, we tried putting a world-class playground there, but the HPB said, nope, sorry, not on Lincoln Road. Not going to happen.
I don't believe they're going to.
I know, I'm just saying.
And it's a recommendation, it's not binding.
Right, that's what I'm saying is, I'll just forecast what my decision there will be.
And maybe they might come up with something that's an even better use of space that we haven't contemplated, because that's what they do. I don't think anybody is suggesting that we're not going to do something purely based on one board's recommendation. They're advisory boards, but because they're advisory boards, let's use their expertise and get some input. And then we will take that into consideration along with everything else. This is not a hidden maneuver to try to thwart anything.
No, I'm not saying you.
This is a goal to make it as good as it can possibly be, and maybe in ways that none of us here are even contemplating, and that's all.
Perfect.
Mr.
All right,
Chair.
so let's move this along.
I just have a question about that. The process right now is, we have a 30, 60, and what's the other percent?
For the new project?
Yeah.
For the playground?
Yeah.
We would do a 30, 60, 90% review.
30,
once
60, 90.
Yeah, once we go through that process.
Right, so once this is 30% designed, which is still pretty conceptual, correct?
The formal submittal to HPB would be at a 30% level.
So, but at that point, there's still opportunity to do changes to the
Yes, sir.
design?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I think what's important to remember is, ultimately, it's the city commission that decides whether there should be a playground there and that type of stuff. But the HPB gives your input as to, okay, this design, is it appropriate within this area and all that. I don't want the HPB to have a chilling effect on our decision to place a children's play area or anything like that on Lincoln Road. I think that's the jurisdiction of the city commission. And that's why I like the process that we have in place, that at the 30% design stage, it goes to the HPB, and the HPB at that point reviews it. Notwithstanding that, Mr. Attorney, assuming that this is an issue that the HPB is concerned about, without there having to be a referral to the HPB, couldn't the HPB make a motion, have their own discussion, if they wanted to have a discussion about it and make a motion, a recommendation to the city commission if they felt so inclined? Mr. Attorney?
The HPB could certainly do that if the HPB is aware of this plan.
Okay.
Can I?
So I think, I think that gives everyone a fair opportunity. It gives us our job. We're seeing the city beyond the optics of just historic preservation. We're seeing the city in the optics of economic development. We're seeing the city in providing services for families and making sure that we have adequate green spaces available. We're seeing it through many different optics that the Historic Preservation Board is not looking at it from. But there is that opportunity for that at the right time, for them to come in to chime in with their expertise. And that, I think, is what's important. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
And through the chair, I totally echo that concern. I mean, I think, I don't want to get into the habit of having the electeds who were elected by Miami Beach residents stifled by a non-elected board. I think we have a process in place where at 30%, they are more than welcome to chime in. They can chime in at any point, apparently. So I'm not going to be in favor of look, this is going to be a multi-year project. We don't need to delay it even further. So it's up to the rest of my colleagues if they would, but I'm not going to be supportive of a referral to the HPB.
Joe, can I just add one thing? I would just like to add that there shouldn't be any fear behind an additional public hearing. I think that public hearings allow people to weigh in, and given the fact that Mel's building happens to be right there, at least give him the opportunity to go in front of the HPB and say, if not this location, where else, and what do you think of it, and what can we do to make it better? I don't think that this is any attempt to thwart anything. All it is allowing for there shouldn't be any fear. Don't be afraid. Okay, this is not about killing a public park. It's simply about allowing for an additional public hearing, which is, by the way, what we would have traditionally always done. Encourage public input. I know that bothers some of us, but it really shouldn't. It really shouldn't. And by the way, the people that are appointed to the HPB are only looking at it through that lens. And, you know, and the fact that we're even saying that the HPB can't be an advisory board is very, very frightening to me, Mr. Gomez, that you even said that, because that's just not true.
But with point of order, because our city attorney.
No, anyway,
all
I'm not
right,
voting right now here, but I don't think a public hearing is a bad thing.
Okay, we're going to wrap this up.
But Mr. Chair, the city attorney just mentioned that the Historic Preservation Board can most certainly issue an advisory opinion if they so choose. They don't need us. Imagine if we set the precedent that their opinion only comes when it's because the city commission is asking for it. I think it's within all the board's jurisdiction that if something is within their concern, they can issue an advisory opinion within the area of scope of their committee. We don't need to do a referral. That's like almost saying you need to have permission from the city commission in order to give an advisory opinion on an issue. They can give an advisory opinion at any point. And I think the city attorney has made that very clear.
Yeah, and this isn't going to not stop at the HPB. That's part of the process, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so let's move this forward. We'll remain with the process. If the HPB wants to issue some sort of advisory opinion, they are more than happy to do so.
So
But
if I
we
can,
have nothing to put in front of them.
So if I can, we'll show Commissioner Suarez making a motion to return to commission with a favorable recommendation to include the south of Euclid Circle Children's Playground in the city's 5-year capital improvement program.
Perfect. I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Showing none opposed, pass 3-0. Thank you.
Can we hear NB 23? Is that what you're here for, Madam Mayor? NB 23.
She doesn't know either.
The NDPL item.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Are you here for the MDPL item?
If I can, MB 23.
That's exactly why I'm taking it now. I want to get you on with your day, which is exactly where I'm taking this now.
MB 23, discuss conflicts of interest, ethical concerns, RE MDPL's multiple roles, NB 23.
And listen, I'm sure this is a discussion that could range on all day. It'd be great if we're able to wrap this up by 11:55, if that's feasible. But let's try and, get on with it, have all sides heard. Commissioner Suarez, turn this over to you.
I don't believe I'm going to be able to finish in 10 minutes, but I will do my best. 9 minutes. I would like to know, is anyone from MDPL present? I am. Great. I am the vice. You want to?
Good morning. My name is Nina Weber-Worth, and I'm vice chair of the board of MDPL.
Okay.
Daniel Ciraldo is ill and lost his voice, and he is also has resigned as the executive director of MDPL.
Okay. Thank you. I understand he resigns effective at the end of the month.
31st, correct.
Correct. Okay. So,
I'm sorry?
So, yeah.
Has he resigned forever?
Yes.
Yes.
Or if he's forever?
Yes.
So you are not taking him back if he loses his campaign?
Correct.
Okay. So,
I just want it on the record.
Okay.
Thank you.
so I want to first start out. You can have a seat.
You want me to sit down?
Yeah, I have a presentation. I mean, you're more than welcome to stand at
All
the
right.
podium.
No, I just wanted to just
Sure.
start with a thought.
If you don't mind,
that's okay.
I'll present, and then you're more than welcome to speak. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
I mean, the only thing.
If you don't mind, I have the floor. I'm speaking, and I have a presentation. I'd like the Inspector General's here. A lot of people are watching, and they'd like to see what I have to say. So, first of all, I want to start off by saying I value historic preservation. Okay, almost every night I walk Flamingo Park from my house in Meridian down to South of Fifth, and I truly love the architecture. I like that we're not a cookie cutter city. I like that the buildings that I see there now were built in the 40s, and it's a marvel. It's like walking down a museum of a city every day, every night. It's something to cherish, and frankly, that's why I decided to call Miami Beach home. And I think MDPL, in its truest form, does good. Okay, I think your mission is valuable, and that it serves a great purpose for the city of Miami Beach. Unfortunately, I think under your past executives' leadership, there has been many ethical concerns and conflicts of interest that have been raised. And so I want to make sure that I delineate between the MDPL's mission and certain people in your, or was recently up until yesterday, leadership. Okay, and I think that's important. And I think, I don't want to come off combative. Okay, and I think the issues and the concerns that I'm going to raise to you and Lynette, you should pay attention to, because I think there are certainly glaring issues where moving forward you don't fall into that trap. Because I want MDPL to succeed. I don't want your organization to be tainted by the actions of just a few. So with that, let me pull up the slideshow. PJ, can you put up my presentation, please? Okay, so you go next slide. So MDPL has special status. Okay, they're a nonprofit, 501c3. They have the visitor center. they have certain city privileges. They are guaranteed a seat on the Historic Preservation Board, which we were just talking about. They have special standing while other organizations would not, to actually appeal HPB decisions. They receive grants from the city, hundreds of thousands of dollars. They also get in-kind donations and the tunes probably millions of dollars from the city for basically free rent that operates the visitor center. The leadership, the executive director engages the commissioners on policy decisions, both in public and in private, and including real estate development. And it has a unique status where it combines, it's a nonprofit and it's a contractor, and it has advocacy roles with elevated influence on our city preservation boards. Okay, next slide, please. One of the issues that I saw, that I realized when I was researching how many times your executive director came to us. And I want you to take a look at that graph. In 2014, up until 2019, there was a series of items to be registered for lobbying. And then in 2020 through 2025, there was only a total of 17 times that he registered to lobby for before the HPB or before any items. Okay, and then when I did the research, when I literally looked at all the videos of the HPB planning board, there was over 180 separate items, and he failed to register on those. Now, there is no registration fee, but even a nonprofit, you have to register to lobby on an item. Okay. And so, PJ, can you go to the next slide, please? These are all the appearances of only HPB, and this is not including the commission or the DRB. This is only the HPB and the planning board. And where I have the yellow is the only sections where, or the only items, excuse me, that he registered to lobby. Next slide, please. And then you can go to the next slide. And you go to the next slide. And you go to the next slide. And you go to the next slide. And the next slide. So you can see that there were many instances where your executive director came before our zoning boards and failed to register as a lobbyist. And under City Code 2-482, any person who seeks to influence a decision of the city commission or administration must register as a lobbyist. It's strictly in our code. And you know, there's been a lot of issues lately with the registering to lobby. You know, the Standard Hotel is, I don't know if you've been following that. There were many instances, or there was an instance where the organization failed to register, they were lobbying, and they were getting paid through a settlement agreement. And it even says, even if the executive director represents a 501c3, advocating for or against city action, especially tied to development use, is lobbying. And so failing to register is a violation of the lobbying ordinance and undermines transparency, especially since MDPL receives public grants and in-kind donations. So if you can go to the next slide, please. Okay, another issue that was actually brought to my attention through a citizen, a resident, okay? They did a public records request for all the contributions that MDPL received since, I think it was 2020, okay? And what I found very, very startling was a lot of the payments that were received, or quote-unquote contributions, were from developers. Developers contributing before projects were opined by MDPL. And I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but I have some case studies here that I'd like to go over. But before I do that, you know, why do I think that's a conflict of interest where developers and lobbyists are contributing thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars to your organization before a project is presented, I think that's a huge conflict of interest. So MDPL's dual status of both a city vendor and a grant recipient intensifies the need for disclosure and recusal mechanisms. Advocacy for contributors without transparency is undisclosed lobbying, because I don't believe that Daniel Seraldo has ever disclosed that he's gotten a contribution from this, the project vendor who may be presenting. And I'll go over a couple case studies so you can see. And let's go to the next slide, please, PJ. Okay, so one of the issues I have is MDPL receives city funds, in-kind grants, and grants in terms of hard dollars, while engaging in advocacy before the city commission. So we don't know if the funds that we give MDPL are used for lobbying. Okay, so you can imagine that we're giving hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions also in kind, in basically free rent, and that money is being funneled to your executive director, who then lobbies us on legislative matters, and not only us, but zoning boards. Next slide, please. So there's no disclosure, unfortunately, as of now, where if MDPL or the executive director, or through the executive director, receive these funds, that there's no transparency in saying that there was a payment made and now we take a position. So next slide, please. Okay, so a perfect case study is Ike. And this is the digital kiosk that I know one of my colleagues was very much against when this was presented, because it looked like sidewalk clutter, right? And believe it or not, MDPL had a position against Ike and this digital billboard that was going to be presented everywhere. But in November 13, 2023, Ike donated $5,000 to MDPL. And then just shy under a month, MDPL publicly changed its position on Ike's digital kiosk information. And then, I mean, that, to me, when I see a $5,000 donation made and then MDPL changes their position 1 month after, less than a month, I think that is it's a reason to concern. And it doesn't even stop there. I believe your grants manager, Matthew Galtinoff, then registers as a lobbyist for Ike in March of 2024. And then in October the same year, in 2024, you get another $5,000. So that's, to me, look, that's where I started to think, oh, well, maybe there's something here that really needs to be discussed openly and transparent. If you go to the next slide, please, PJ. So that was November 13th, 2023. There was a $5,000 donation. Next slide. And this just shows where MDPL has changed their position on December 12th, 1 month after they received the $5,000 donation. Next slide, please. And this is where one of your other employees, Matthew Galtinoff, actually registered as a lobbyist for Ike, and then receives a subsequent $5,000 donation. Next slide, please. Okay, you don't have to go through this. You don't have to go through this video, PJ. You can go next. So here's another case study.
So,
the National Hotel.
Commissioner, if I could, because I'm pressed on time, I announced I have to leave at 12:15. I want to hear this out. Where do you want to take this? Is it going through?
I just want to finish.
Well, I get that.
I just need 5 more minutes.
But
so
then there's going to be back and forth and things like that.
Yeah, well, I'd still like to finish my presentation, if that's okay with the chair.
If we can,
5 minutes.
we get where we're going with this, if we could speed through some of this.
Sure. So another case study was a National Hotel. In 2022, November 8th, the National Hotel donates $5,000 to MDPL. And the same year, a couple months later, MDPL meets with the adjacent neighborhood there's a dispute between the National and the Ritz-Carlton. And all of a sudden there is a position against the writs from MDPL, okay? And then another $5,000 donation is made. Okay, next case study, please. And next slide. And this is a little bit more concurrent for the next case study. Next slide, please. This is the Deauville. This is what's happening right now. In September 9th of 2024, Terra Group donates $5,000 to MDPL. Just a couple months later, MDPL goes on record favoring the project, and literally on the Miami Herald says this project is going to be even better than the Deauville. Okay, and you can go to the next slide. Okay, you know,
urbanistically, this new project was maybe even better than the original.
It's 1 minute.
Accolades on the proposal as well.
Okay, we can go next slide, PJ. So, again, a donation is made, position is either changed or made in favor of it. Okay, next slide, please. And so, you know, you could pause the slideshow for the sake of time, PJ. So, when I see that there's a failure to register as a lobbyist, okay, for the last 5 years, and there's only 12 instances, and then, but there's like almost 200 different items that he's appeared before HPB and Planning Board and Commission. I think that's a huge problem. I think that violates our lobbying laws. And then when I see developers and lobbyists paying MDPL, and those positions are somehow affected, I think that's a huge problem. Now listen, your organization is more than welcome to receive contributions, correct? I don't see any issue with that, but the issue that I certainly have is that MDPL has certain special status with Miami Beach through our resiliency code. You have seats on our board. You have appeal rights. And to me, I think it's frightening to know that you're getting city funds and you're getting funds from developers when projects are actually in play. I think that's a huge conflict of interest. And I think, look, I understand Daniel Seraldo resigned yesterday, okay? Which is curious to know that right before this meeting. Like I said before, I think this is, I don't know if you knew about any of this, okay? I think there are certainly issues of transparency and disclosure that is not being applied here. But when I see developers, you know, contributing just months before projects are being opined on from your board and from your executive director, I think that it doesn't look good. And I don't want that to happen to MTPL, because I do love your organization, and I stand for what you guys believe in. And like I said, I think, unfortunately, with your past leadership, it has gone awry. And by the way, I'm not the only one that feels that way. Okay, and I think you can hear from, you know, even our former mayor, who was a founding member of MDPL. She has serious reservations on how Mr. Seraldo has really run your organization, because I don't want it to be tainted the way it has been up until this point. So, look, I'd love to hear some feedback. I'd love to hear some comments, and see, you know, where this lands, because I don't think moving forward, this is a transparent way how our city should be dealing with zoning matters, especially with an organization that has such special and literally superpower abilities to appeal and influence our decision making.
And Commissioner, what are you kind of envisioning from today? Is this just a discussion to have further dialogue back and forth, some sort of motion, or
Well,
essentially with new leadership here,
that-
form
that-
a working
that- yeah.
relationship?
That's what I'd like to propose, that we are going to have new leadership. We are now in transition, and we can also work with you in setting the guidelines for who we can take contributions from and how we can always put our best foot forward as a lobbyist when needed. And I just wanted to just say, as I share you, I lived on Ocean Drive for 32 years, and I treasure it as well. And we're all in the process right now and trying to rebrand Ocean Drive as really a mecca for historic and heritage tourism. And I envision MDPL, being the cornerstone for that and a hub of the community. And we want to work with the commission to make it as such. Lynette?
I just want to say, as a person who respects numbers as I do, I get the implications. You've done a thorough job of your homework. I don't know, as someone that if a position could be influenced by a $5,000 donation, you certainly couldn't buy my support for $5,000 or any organization I chair. For 5,000, maybe 500,000, we could start talking, but these are very little amounts of money. That doesn't mean I sanction this behavior. I want to be clear. And I think I'm not directly involved. The thing about MDPL is we're a very complex organization because we have the museum, we run the tours, we have the visitor center that hosts people coming in, and we have advocacy, which these concerns are about. I'm not on advocacy. I work with the museum and exhibits. But I think you brought an important point. We have to take a closer look because the optics are not good. And, but I think the numbers are small. I don't think those influenced opinions, but we should make sure that there are connections are noted. And I also noted that where Mr. Seraldo did register, all of the ones you highlighted in yellow were yes. When he registered as a lobbyist, with the ones you showed, pages where he lobbied but did not register, all the ones that were blue was no.
So perhaps what we can do is, when new leadership is in place, I'd welcome this discussion to be furthered at the Finance Committee in plotting out a new path forward together. One thing that kind of gives me pause, and this has nothing to do with any individual, and it's just my initial thought, I'm not stuck to it, is, an organization receiving significant amount of taxpayer money, then turning around and lobbying us. It just seems like it should be one or the other, but I'm happy to talk through some of those issues. Not now, but as we kind of bring this back to the Finance Committee and plot out a better path forward. Commissioner Bada, I'll hand it over to you. And Madam Mayor, if you wanted to speak as well.
I'd like to, so just for those listening who may not know, since it wasn't illuminated in the presentation, the way MDPL works is, as Lynette alluded and Nina alluded, it is a very complex organization, and so there are different committees that do different things. And the advocacy group meets as a group. It's 3, 4, 5, 6 people, depending on the year of how many people are involved. Some people aren't even on the board of MDPL, but they're still part of the advocacy committee, and they get presentations on the projects, and they weigh the merits of the projects, and as a group, they make a recommendation. They formulate an opinion and make a recommendation. So the recommendation is from the advocacy group. The executive director, whoever he or she may be, is then the representative at the meeting to share that opinion, but it doesn't have to be. It could be anybody. So that's just how it works, and I want to make sure that that is plainly understood. Second of all, there is a clear concern that I share. I'm not denigrating the issues raised, but I want to be transparent. I want the issues to be transparent, that the organization has been under fire multiple times over the last decade and has almost been run out of town successfully in the last 5 years or so. And so I want to be sure that as we go forward, we allow people who are putting together a new structure with a new management and a new vision on how to move forward, give them the opportunity to do the correct thing. For instance, under the previous chairman of the board, who has not been on the board for years, things were not handled very well from a financial perspective. When he was forced off the board, which triggered a whole bunch of drama that almost ran MDPL out of town, when MDPL was safely reconstituted, the first thing that was done was to bring the financials up to snuff in the best possible way. Forensic accounting, 3 years of audits, everything, I can't even remember the details. It's all out in the public. So there's nothing, there is a lot of very good work that has been done in terms of getting the organization to where it needs to be. It has also grown in its impact and import in the city dramatically, from a number of concerned citizens and residents opining to an organization that has a lot of money moving through it for Art Deco weekend. And there was somebody who passed away who bequeathed an enormous gift for MDPL, which is a game changer. It was all legit. He was dead. He wasn't lobbying for anything. There was fundraising, and I believe it continues, to help fund the new museum, because the city would match funds that were fundraised for the new museum. So it's gone from being sort of this little band of activists to a big organized 501c3 that now has many more functions than it has had in years past. And sometimes leadership isn't always, as you well know, my friends in business and finance, we've all been involved in startups. Sometimes the person who starts the organization is not the person to lead it into the next chapter. And I believe that with all that Daniel has done that is good for the organization, it is time for a transition. Yeah. And the new leadership will enable this organization to grow into its role more fully, more properly, doing things the way it now demands because of the scrutiny on it, because it is in a different role than it used to be. And I think that is a very valid conversation. I just want to separate, though, the perception that anything MDPL does is bad and corrupt, because that is not true, and I will never support that. And I would even go so far as to say that I don't believe anything that Daniel did, and I don't know because I'm not Daniel, but I think he was acting in what he thought was the best capacity for the organization. And in some cases, incorrectly, but not for any personal gain other than furthering the mission of the organization. So I wanted to put that on the record, because I know there are a lot of people who have a lot of feelings one way or the other, and I want to make sure that this is a more fulsome discussion. And I really appreciate the opportunity to have everyone come back in a couple of months when your new leadership is hired, hopefully somebody with much broader experience from a bigger organization that can really take MDPL where it is now, which is already significantly elevated from where it has been, and bring it into the 21st century in the best possible way.
Thank you, Commissioner Fernandez.
Could I say one thing? I think that you've raised some issues that the board could consider voting on, like, should we accept donations from developers? I didn't know we were. Obviously, I have the right to examine.
You didn't know you guys were accepting donations from developers?
No, and I work in the museum and the redoing of the museum. But well, I'm just saying there are issues we could address on procedural issues that the board can make definitive decisions on how we want to go forward. And personally, I'll keep a closer eye on the donations we do receive. I have access, but I don't look at them individually. the money we get. I'm not the treasurer, nor am I in the advocacy committee.
Madam Mayor.
And I think that's the problem. And I think that we used to have that in place. And when Danielle came in, it changed. Not only did it change, but they changed the bylaws that only them can select who comes in and who doesn't come in. And so I agree that the board, and I was going to ask that question, does the board votes on even if it's after the fact, on the projects that are supported by MDPL? And if they don't, they should, because the board is the heart of the community, and it's the heart of the preservation. And if the board is kept divided, and she's in the museum, and she's in, I forgot already, whatever it is, and I am in someplace else, the divide and conquer comes in. And in the meantime, whoever is executive director is the one pulling the strings on everybody around them. So I want to first clarify that I am here in support of MDPL as an organization, and that if anything happens to try to destroy that core organization that has, other people say they did it, but was the one that started the redevelopment of Miami Beach, particularly South Beach, that then went all to Miami Beach, I will be front running this against. I have never, and I'm putting it on the record clearly, liked Daniel. Daniel broke the organization because he wanted to be paid $116,000 at the very beginning, which I don't remember what year that was, because that's why I keep young. I don't remember the years passes. But that was a lot of money that we knew other people, because I was not in the organization. We knew MDPL could never sustain, because I don't think we paid it with all the other money. Now, you have an organization that is complicated, that was run for over 25 years, 30 years, I don't remember that either. And it had our Deco Weekend, it had the store, it had the walking tour, it had auditioners so that we could give out and they can walk. We had all the same things that they have. The only thing that has happened is that Daniel loves to do events. And so now the organization has become an event person. He sends event here, he publishes all the events in Miami Beach and puts it in the MDPL. I believe that if he's out, I ask the question, as long as it's permanently, I think that the way of getting into MDPL, should we had a process that if members came in and nominated a person from the street, whoever that person was, it would get considered. That was taken away, because that's how we were doing it to get into it. And so it became a closed organization, whoever he could control, and he can only control it by the divide and conquer. They need to know the finances. I don't understand how a board could be an actual board. They're telling me to lower my voice. I'm not yelling, I'm just passionate
I'll
about
say,
it.
Madam Mayor, you are much more liberal about the use of the microphone on that side than you are at Tuesday Morning Breakfast Club.
And so I think that's the first step. It's good. I am only very sorry that he's running for commission, because if he gets on the dais, he will do the same thing here. He will do the same thing, because that's his modus operandi. So for MDPL, I'm here. I'm glad it's permanent. I have the answer that the votes were not, that the board was never advised How could you not look at the finances?
We get the finances, I'm not saying, but I look at every donation.
Let's
Well,
leave, Commissioner
from now
Fernandez,
on, maybe you should.
For the
But I am here to support MDPL.
correcting a statement really quickly. For the record, the finances are in excellent shape. The chairman of the board, Joe Levine, is focused on this. Not every member focuses on every item. So Lynette may be focusing on the women's history
I
exhibition,
understand.
and other people are on the finance committee. There is a whole finance committee. I invite anybody to go look for the, requests of finances, and you'll see that they are impeccable.
Yeah,
Listen,
Commissioner
this
Fernandez.
is not the
Hold on.
first
Oh,
time,
okay, yeah.
just
Yeah.
one, please,
Yeah.
please. This is not the first time I have complained about this. I have complained to a variety of people. I'm sorry I didn't think of the Inspector General because I'm not there that mean, but I like to fix the problem for MDPL.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Madam Mayor, and to Nina and Lynette for your volunteer service. I want to begin by recognizing the Miami Design Preservation League for its historic and undeniable contributions to our city. For nearly 50 years, MDPL has served as a cultural steward and as a voice for preservationists in our community when perhaps that did not exist, playing a leading role in saving and celebrating the iconic Art Deco historic district that has helped make Miami Beach famous around the world. Thanks to NDPL's efforts dating back to Barbara Kappenman and a group of determined volunteers like Maddie that were chaining themselves up to buildings, and I think, Nina, you may have been there as well back in the 70s, our city didn't bulldoze its past. Instead, we honored it. We protected it. We built an economy around it. And the League's advocacy has helped secure the district's placement on the National Register of Historic Places in 1979 and created a foundation for cultural tourism that to benefit us all to this day. And I've seen, as we've mentioned in the past, its important work of even against the Resiliency and Unsafe Structures Act that was going after our collection of Art Deco buildings. The League's advocacy in Tallahassee was instrumental in helping us in our fight to exempt that from preemption. They've educated millions through their museum, through the historic walking tours, through the Art Deco weekend. They've trained local artists. They instilled civic pride in our built environment. Their record of preservation is next to none and is commendable, and it is indeed historic itself. None of that good can exempt any organization, no matter how storied, no matter how beloved, from questions of accountability and from questions of transparency. Today, we're not questioning MDPL's contributions. Those are undeniable. I think we are examining whether its recent financial relationships comply with our ethical standards. And I don't think just ethical standards of the dais, I think of the community as well. And I think we owe it to our residents to ensure that all charitable organizations, not just MDPL, engaging in the political discourse or even having operating agreements to manage facilities, that they do so transparency when they're soliciting funds, that they do it ethically when they're soliciting funds, that they do it without a perception of impropriety. So this is not a moment about canceling the past. I think we celebrate everything that MDPL has done. And I think this is a moment that is a moment of unity, not to quote our chairman, Joe Magazine, but I think the unity here is that there's a desire from both sides. The sponsor of this item, Commissioner Suarez, wants to make sure that donations don't influence the advocacy. And I see from the board leadership that's present before us today
a desire to work together on policies to make sure that MDPL doesn't stop operating, that it continues operating into the future, upholding the highest levels of ethics, appearances that make sure that advocate for historic preservation and for the good of the community without the influence of any contributions from entities that have business before our land use boards. I do have to say that this might sound corny. I got teary-eyed, seeing
Yes,
the
it does.
contributions to from Ike, and then after Ike made a contribution, then the position changed. That to me was heartbreaking. Why? Because I trust the integrity of the organization. I formed difficult decisions that were unpopular based on the opinion that we get from these advocacy organizations because we trust the advocacy organizations, we trust the volunteers in the advocacy organizations to be taking positions that are in the best interest of the community. And when I see that there was a contribution, and then right after the contribution, the position changed, and that I base my position and my decision in part trusting in the integrity of the organization, that to me, it's personally heartbreaking to me because I trust people and I want to always think the best of people, and the people are coming forward, especially taking these positions in the best interest of the public. So Nina and Lynette, I want to thank you both for coming forward, not in a combative spirit, but in the spirit of collaboration, so that we make sure that there is a future for NDPL, a future of advocacy, a future of preservation, but doing it in a way that any contribution is of the highest levels of transparency and ethics, and maybe deciding, do we want to continue getting taxpayer support? And if we do, maybe then we forfeit any developer support whatsoever. And I think that that should be the policy. If you get taxpayers' dollars, we're not going to be getting dollars then from entities that do development or business in the city, because that's the standards we govern ourselves by also as elected officials when we go out to our campaigns. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So
And
just
that's
in interest of time, can we say we're going to have you back at this committee in 3 months when you have new leadership in place? And if
I don't know if 3 months is going to be the right timing in terms of how long it's going to take us to
Let's play it by
vet
ear then.
and get new leadership. So
Yeah,
I
let's
just
play it
can't
by
put a
ear.
time frame
Let's
on
ballpark
that.
it for something like that. Yeah, whether it's 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. I want to give you your form to come back and work collaboratively with this commission.
Absolutely.
And if it's all possible, maybe there's an open and public way of how you do select a new executive director. And I think, considering that the MDPL does receive a significant amount of money in city and taxpayer funds, I think that process should be open and transparent in a public fashion. And I'd be more than happy to host it here in chambers of how that's voted on.
Well, let's have follow-up. Team, we've been at this for 50 minutes. I've had to leave for 20 minutes. Let's see you back in 3 months, and if there's some other things in the interim, we can have one-off conversations, but let's wrap this up.
So Chair, we'll show the item was presented, a presentation by Commissioner Suarez was added to the record. The representatives of the MDPL spoke about enacting organizational returns and for MDPL to return to discuss when appropriate or in 3 months.
Excellent. I'm going to try and speed through some things. Thank you so much for your time, what everything does. I'd have much more niceties, but in interest of efficiency. Yeah, we're going to have that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Quick items that I think are just going to be referrals, basically to staff, and then I have to get out of here, and then we're going to, Mayor, I'm sorry for having you here. That'll be a little more robust of a conversation, but I just want to call 19 and 20, NB 19 and 20, that I think are just going to be, we hear from staff, and we're going to put the ball in your corner, because I don't have time for drawn-out conversations.
Okay, we'll start with that. MB 20, discuss the management operation of a public beachfront concession agreements as it pertains to the sale of alcoholic beverages and advertising/sponsorship opportunities. NB 19.
Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez.
Yes. Good morning. I am here today on this item because I know that we have been needing to raise public funds, whether it pay for the expansion of Muscle Beach,
I like that.
or our sanitation fund, or even the debt on, or even some of the debt on this new water and sewer bonding that we have. And so that is why I am considering considering amending this agreement of alcohol to sell beer, wine, and champagne on the beach as partners in a partnership, which would be lucrative, incredibly lucrative and significant, and could possibly help us fiscally, because we know that we have some issues. So as long as we find the right revenue stream, what I would like is for the administration to go back and negotiate these sales so that potentially we can. How much are we lacking in the sanitation fund right now?
Well, I don't think this would go through the sanitation, but for
Well, I
some
don't know,
other.
it could go anywhere. These
Yeah,
funds
yeah, the
that we're gonna
capital-
make, but I think that what could happen here, beer and wine sales on the beach could generate a lot of money. And Miami Beach as partners with the Boucher brothers, I think that would be, something that we can explore, because I know that we need, revenue sources.
For playgrounds, for
And something
Muscle
that's
Beach.
recurring, exactly.
For me, it's not even so much about the revenue, although that's a extremely important point. For me, it's actually regulating the sale of this. Like, I go to 3rd Street Beach, my mom goes there every day, and Mom, I'm sorry, because I know you have your favorite guy you buy margaritas from. But you feel like you're in Cozumel, Mexico. It is so cheap and run down. You hear margarita, pina colada. And now they're selling empanadas out of backpacks. They're selling weed. So, weed, everything. So regulating this removes the black market, because right now,
Wait, we're regulating sales of weed? No, I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
how much money do we need? No, but, yeah, you sit on 3rd Street, you feel like you're on a cheap cruise, right? All the people that are walking by with their backpacks selling margaritas and things like that. It is so run down and cheap. Let's just kick it over to city staff and come back and say what the different possibilities are. Commissioner
I
Suarez.
was just about to say the same thing, but in the sake of time, I'll move the item in favorable recommendation.
I'll second.
Okay, so we'll show the item return to commission with a favorable recommendation to direct the administration to negotiate an amended agreement with Boucher Brothers Miami Beach LLC to implement the sale of alcoholic beverages and advertising sponsorships. Who made the motion?
I did.
I have a
And then the
question.
second?
Before we close the vote, I do have a question. Mr. City Attorney, maybe you can help me understand a little bit. This like falls in this sort of gray zone, right? Like, the hotels currently can sell booze because of whatever concession agreements they have. However, it is not legal to drink on our beaches. And so how do we reconcile that? And then also, are we opening the door for every private condo that is upland of the beach to then petition to have their, little in-house cantina also sell alcohol?
So this is a complicated question that I can't answer immediately, because the limited research that I have done prior to today's meeting and conversations that I've had, in order to sell alcohol, you need to have a permanent structure. The other issue is going to be, where is that structure located? There are limitations in our beachfront management agreement with the state of Florida. So there are a lot of issues that need to get worked through in order for something like this to work. Will this result in other beachfront concessionaires, some of the private property owners that already have concession agreements, to want the same? Sure, that could happen. But I think it's all going to depend on what the state's requirements are for obtaining a liquor license, and that might limit what can actually be done. So I think there's a lot of due diligence that needs to be done, both by the city as well as by our concession partners, to see what exactly is possible.
So before we vote favorably on something that we, like, in concept, it seems like it could be a good thing, but in actuality, we don't know yet what it looks like, how it works, who would be eligible for it. Would it require that we have additional new structures on the beach? would we not be more prudent to bring this back next month?
Wouldn't that be part of the proposal?
That's what this is. So this is just for staff to go and explore and see what's feasible. So we're not like, we're not saying, oh, go out and sell alcohol. It's just for staff to sit here and say, here's what is potentially
And
possible.
when does that come, that's coming
Coming
back
back
to
to
the
us.
commission, right? Instead of to here.
Correct.
So I would suggest it might make sense to come back here before it goes back to commission.
That works. Absolutely.
So we could show the item that is referred to commission to negotiate and then return to FERC for finalization.
Well, not even negotiate necessarily, but lay out the
A
program.
menu of options. We can do that.
And with obviously the city attorney, because I.
We'll bake it here in finance, and then if it approved, we'll send it to the commission.
I think that, if I may, I think that's what would happen is the commission would direct administration, to staff to negotiate and begin to put that together and come back to FERC to hash out those details.
But no, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm not saying go hash out the details with a concessionaire. I'm saying come back to us at FERC and explain what it could look like, regardless of who the concessionaire is, regardless of if it's going to apply to private condos or not. Like, let us hear the ramifications of all this before we go recommending to go negotiate with the concessionaire.
I think that's what we're saying.
But I don't think that's what Jason is
No,
saying.
but if I may, through the chair, I think we need to work collaboratively with the concessionaire, because there are things that the concessionaire is going to need to tell us as to what they're able to do or willing to do. I think it would be much more expedient to do it that way. And then once we have a model, the commission can decide how broadly or in what limited capacity.
But it's not a negotiation, it is a fact-finding, it's putting something together.
It's
So
securing proposals,
Brainstorm.
is my understanding, is to secure a proposal and discuss how this could actually work in practice.
So, okay, so I know I'm parsing this, but brainstorming I'm fine with. Negotiating and securing a proposal, I'm not fine with, because I think that is one step too far. Let's get the brainstorming results back, let's see what the framework would be, and then we say, okay, this is something we want to proceed with, let's see how we can, who's interested in it.
And I think that's where I want to go with this, right? Let's see, do we only do it on beaches in front of hotels? Do we only do it on beaches not in front of hotels? Do we only do it with kind of, like, this is very preliminary. So I'm not asking to secure any type of contractor proposal. Come back with a menu of the different options on both the alcohol and the advertising and say, here's basically the possibilities in front of us. 100%.
If I may, then what I would do is, I believe, then strike the term negotiate amended agreement and maybe put in develop a framework.
Yes,
Framework.
the potential, possible. Does that mean?
Okay, so we'll show it, return to commission with a favorable recommendation, direct administration to develop a framework with the Boucher Brothers Miami Beach LLC to implement the sale of alcoholic beverages and advertising, and to return to FERC for further development.
Mr. Chair, good afternoon. Ralph Andrade, I represent Boucher Brothers. I just want to make sure that as part of the referral, because I think it's highly relevant to the discussion, is that we're able to discuss with staff potential revenue sharing, what the financials of this framework may look like. I just want to make sure staff understands
That's
that we're not.
front and center, because
Okay.
we all have a health and wellness area to fund. We have playgrounds to fund. So we're looking for dedicated revenue sources to do so.
Okay, making sure.
It doesn't have to be the Boucher brothers. I know that's who you represent, but hypothetically speaking, there could be somebody who does just this, who is more suited to the task at hand. I don't know, because we haven't discussed what the framework is. So could be the Boucher brothers, could be somebody else, could be we decide, you know what, it's not worth it. I just want to make sure that this is not something, a brainstorming that would only be relevant to the Boucher brothers. If we come up with something that we like.
Yeah, if staff says, hey, here's our other options, this is as open-ended as possible for you. I want you to put on your creativity. I haven't spent too much time thinking about the different details and dynamics. This is for you to go out and kind of do your magic.
And work with the police as well, because they're going to have to be enforcing and, making sure that the dudes selling everything out of their backpacks are, that's a whole different conversation. But it needs to be a holistic approach.
And if there's also women out there that sell it. So.
Dudes in the non-gendered version,
thank you.
sense of it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I may,
Dudes,
then
dudettes,
a bit presumptive.
Dudes, dudettes, and everybody in between.
If I may, so then we'll strike Boucher Brothers LLC from it. So it'd be return to commission with favorable recommendation, direct administration to develop a framework to implement the sale of alcoholic beverages and advertising sponsorships on the beach, and to return to FERC for further discussion when appropriate.
Yeah, perfect.
Who made that motion?
Can we
I
just
believe
be
it's
clear
Commissioner
that
Suarez.
part of those conversations?
Of course. You're our
includes
beach
the
concessionaire,
Right,
so
right,
it's front and
because
center.
sometimes I know staff takes
We'll work up
the direction literally, and if it doesn't reference Boucher Brothers, they won't talk to them. So that
Thank you.
includes the Boucher Brothers, right?
Thank you.
Includes but not limited to.
No
Including
problem.
but not
We
limited
love
to.
competition.
I believe it was moved by Commissioner Suarez. Do we have a second?
I'll say.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, it passed 3-0. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, sorry for keeping you waiting. We would love to have you come up, and I'm going to have to leave part of the way through your conversation, but I am supportive of the direction that we're going in here. I don't know if I can pre-register a vote.
You can.
I can?
You can.
For this and also for my friend and colleague's item, NB 20.
MB 20, referral to discuss adding infertility treatment as a benefit for plan participants insured under the city's
No,
self-funded
that's
health.
not-
Well, we're hearing 17, but I'd like to pre-register.
He's going first
Oh.
on 17.
Sorry.
Which one?
For the mayor. That's
Yeah.
been patiently waiting.
Sorry, discuss possible interlocal agreement between the city of Miami Beach and North Bay Village for extending Miami Beach trolley route, MB 17.
We love Mayor Samantha.
Good afternoon, colleagues. It has been actually a lot of fun and fascinating watching your meeting this morning. I commend each of you for your dedication to public service, for the clear-eyed way that you evaluate these issues, and for your ability to engage productively with one another despite some disagreements. We are here because the North Beach Band Shell and the Normandy Fountain Business Association, our residents and North Beach business owners have encouraged North Bay Village to be proactive about getting my residents to come and spend money in Miami Beach's businesses. And that's something that I can get on board with because it involves encouraging multiple mobility and multimodal options between our two communities. As you all know, North Bay Village is your immediate neighbor to the west along the 79th Street John F. Kennedy Causeway. We are very excited about the possibility of partnering with Miami Beach
This was one.
to extend the North Beach trolley into North Bay Village. We believe that the most prudent path forward at this time is to pilot that trolley extension during the Culture Crawl events, which I believe happen once a month on the third Thursday of the month. So we'd like to pilot the Culture Crawl trolley. I think the hours should be reasonable so that people can enjoy their night in North Beach and not have to rush back to catch a trolley. And then I'd like to continue to expand the conversation and have more detailed discussion about the costs to actually extend the trolley for regular service going forward. So option 2 on your briefing is the pilot through Culture Crawl. I'm perfectly happy and would be grateful to move forward with option 2 at this time. But then I'd like to have evidence-based encouragement that the extension would make sense, and then we can talk about the extension. So I welcome your questions. I'd love your support. We want to promote this throughout North Bay Village. We had a really successful event at the Band Shell. Thank you, Vice Mayor Bott, for joining me on the stage at the Band Shell to express unity between our two communities. You know, I've got a year and a half left, not a lot of time, but I want to bridge the gap between our two communities and strengthen those relationships through this trolley pilot.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Any questions?
Yeah, so I want to say thank you for coming, Mayor. I really appreciate it. I think there is definitely a need to connect the trolley between Miami Beach and North Bay Village. When you do a ride-share service like that, it lessens the impact of traffic, for example, and traffic on North Beach is horrendous. And so anything that we can do to limit that. As far as extending, you know, for option 2, going above and beyond just the culture crawl, what is North Bay Village willing to bring forward if we were to extend the trolley to North Bay Village?
We're going to contribute financially. So we would need, my understanding is right now that the city is on a month-to-month contract with its trolley provider, that you're going out to bid for a new provider. So the figures financially are in flux. Once you guys have a clearer sense of what the expense would be under a new provider scenario, I would love to get that data. Tell me what it's going to cost. We can have a negotiation. And we have CITT funds that can be used to extend the trolley. And I also have probably 3 or 4 development agreements that will be negotiated in the next 6 months. So we will have private contributions to our village's transit options.
Under the current plan, let's say nothing changed, what would North Bay Village be willing to contribute? If that, let's just assume that was the current plan.
If the current plan were to extend the trolley,
well, the finances of what we pay for, what would North Bay Village be willing to?
Which option are you referring to? Because
Number 2. The option.
Number 2 is the pilot for a culture crawl, which is just once a month.
Not the pilot. The
option 1 is for
correct.
the extension. I can't tell you how much we'd be willing to contribute because that would be poor negotiation skills on my part. I don't know what it's going to cost, Commissioner. But we do have over $1 million in unspent CITT funds.
Okay. So I guess, and let me recognize some of my colleagues, Commissioner Bott, Vice Mayor Bott.
Thank you. I would, for the record, I'd like to be a co-sponsor on this. I think this is awesome, and the mayor and I have had multiple conversations over the last few months, and the most recently with Jose and his department. This memo encapsulates everything exactly, and I'm very much in favor of starting ASAP, the option 2, to pilot this so we can collect the data to determine, as Jose is negotiating our new trolley vendor contract, what makes the most sense. Because we might think it's the greatest thing in the world, and we find out that actually nobody uses it. Or we might find out that we think it's going to be a great thing, and people are clamoring for something every day, multiple more routes. And so we need to get the data collected as soon as possible so that we don't hamper our negotiation for what we need here in the city by adding this late to the process. Traffic is abysmal in North Beach, and going across that bridge is a huge part of it. And as North Beach really starts to blossom in the best possible way, in organic ways, with the band shell and the Normandy Fountain activations and great restaurants and cool little shopping, we want to encourage people to visit this and use this as their neighborhood too. Just not drive there. That's all we're saying. So, we talk all the time about parking and driving and affordable housing and how that all intermixes. And this, if it works as well as we think it would, not only will be a big step towards that, but could also be, proof positive that we could conceivably extend this up to the surf side as well and take even more cars off the road. So I would move this with my colleagues' input to move with option 2 immediately and let us know what you need to get going.
A big step toward annexation.
Take it back. Take it back.
Commissioner Fernandez.
I think Commissioner Bond stated it well. It makes just perfect sense. It's long overdue, so I don't need to restate everything. So proud to see the mayor here and to see the collaboration.
And Jose, where are we with the negotiations?
So the negotiations are currently ongoing. We're towards the tail end. We expect to be before this body probably, hopefully next month.
Oh, good.
Once we've got a deal, at least on pencil, to bring before the FERC. That was the direction, to come before FERC before we go to the city commission. So we're aiming for next month's meeting.
Wait, can I just
Vice
say
Mayor Bott?
So if you are coming next month with a deal, we're not going to have data collection by then. So, or with a proposed deal. So, how do we ensure that we're not locked into something which then our vendor can say, oh, it wasn't part of the contract, not doing it, or hold us over a barrel and say, sure, we'll do it, but it'll be $10 per head per ride. How do we protect ourselves?
In our negotiations, the bottom line, what we're negotiating is a hourly rate per service hour, a rate per service hour, and that can fluctuate. We can add we can
Okay.
take away, as long, that's really the key number. And then we can always add to the route, we can always add more vehicles.
Well,
It
so
would
I
be
thought-
at a higher cost.
Right, so that's what I thought in our conversations, you had said that the hours weren't as big of a deal as it was to factor in if we need additional trolleys.
Correct, because
So-
sometimes extending a route, it's not so much the distance, but the fact that it may exceed the thresholds established in the contract for passenger wait times or headways, which is
So
a
could
critical.
it be negotiated so that potentially in 6 months, we come back to them and say, and we're going to execute an additional 5 trolleys at the pre-approved rate? So it's not, they're not holding us to, well, you didn't say it in the contract, so now we're gonna charge you double. But just put in a clause in there that we have the right to extend our trolley service at the same rate up to an additional 5 or 10 trolleys or something like that.
Absolutely, what we're negotiating is a sliding scale, that the more hours we operate, the lower the cost, if you will, there's economies of
doesn't-
scale, but that allows us to be flexible and add or remove portions of a route, or add a new route, for example.
But I thought I just heard you say that if we add a trolley, because it's not just the route, it's the actual vehicle, that will come at a more expensive cost than the, let's say, 50 that we're buying now for the new contract.
Correct, because of the service hours. The
Right.
service hours increases, and that will increase the cost. It's not necessarily the fact that it's an additional trolley, it's just more hours that are being served.
So
that
the
will
cost of the
increase.
trolley acquisition is baked into the hours served rate?
Correct.
Okay,
It comes down to hours of service.
Okay.
And the cost of 1 hour, and we multiply that by however many hours we operate. And that gives us flexibility to add and remove routes as needed.
and is there any cap on that? Like, do they say, yeah, sure, but you can't do more than 20?
No,
Or
it's a
whatever.
sliding scale where.
infinity,
and-
up to infinity.
And it can go up to however high we want it to go to. It allows for expansions, yes.
Can we put in the contract we want infinity trolleys? Just to say, just to see what they do? Okay, so I think we're all,
I'd like to speak. So, first of all, I'm now a voting member on the committee, so that you have all 3 members of the committee here. I'd just like to recognize that. You know what, Mayor, I'm really happy that we're entering into these types of interlocal agreements, because for too long, I mean, we really do all exist so closely together, and it's the first time that I've seen a mayor from North Bay Village in all of my years here come before us. So, you know, I'm completely supportive of this. I'm really looking forward to seeing what we're negotiating in terms of trolleys, if it will even be a trolley. I'm really hoping we get something snazzier, like some cool kind of van type thing, correct? What? Or something that is a little bit more user-friendly than this trolley that is difficult for many seniors to get on and off of, with the kneeling trolley. So hopefully whatever this is, Jose, and how far away are we, Jose, from finalizing the entire trolley?
The executing a new contract or initiating the new service?
Initiating a new service.
Initiating the new service will depend on the vehicle that's ultimately selected. Different vehicles have different manufacturing times. So it can be anywhere between 8 months to a year and a half, you know, depending on the vehicle. So
Okay.
we're still ironing that out, but there's a high demand for certain vehicles. So, you know, as soon as we put in the order, we're in a queue, but it may.
So you
may
already know
take
which one
as
you're gonna
much
pick. I have
as
not been involved
a
in
year
the
and a half.
procurement process, so hopefully, I mean, I don't know what will happen, but hopefully it will not be a trolley at all, and it will be some sort of electric snazzy streamlined thing that's very easy for seniors and people, anybody with wheels of any kind can get on and off. I think you already know that, because
Yes.
we've, okay, beaten that dead horse. So, thank you, welcome, come back with more ideas of how we can, you know, collaborate as
Commissioner
communities.
Fernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jose, while you're at the podium, where are we on the similar discussion with Damian Pardo over in the city of Miami and, you know, exploring the connection, the trolley connection between Miami Beach and downtown Miami?
I think we have a meeting pending with the City of Miami folks to go over some of, just to discuss with them the potential of, and in terms of where the stops should be. So that's occurring on a parallel basis, but we're pending a meeting with the City of Miami.
Okay, because we had a meeting last month, so has there been any progress in the in-between?
There has internally, but we haven't met yet with City of Miami.
Because this is, I mean, and I think this is the important thing for the public to see, that we are working not only in seeing how we move people within our municipal limits, but the greatest challenge that we deal in terms of transportation and traffic in our city is people not necessarily moving within our city, but the traffic of people leaving our city that is causing a lot of that gridlock between 3 and 7 p.m. And so we're trying to find ways that we can work with our neighboring municipalities and help people move between the boundary lines of cities, because that's the key thing. Moving within cities, it's, that's great, but the key thing is how do we move within the region more efficiently? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Of course. So one last thing before we wrap up. Would it be okay if we, from a staff's point of view, recommend option 1 and 2, so that when you negotiate with the trolley company, you can incorporate maybe an a la carte option that North Bay Village wants to sign on? I don't know if you need a favorable recommendation for 1 to proceed with that negotiation.
I think what I was thinking in hearing the, discussion, let's keep it a little bit open, because it seems like this might be a growing kind of relationship, perhaps, if I may offer, to return the commission with a favorable recommendation of the direct administration to negotiate with North Bay Village an interlocal agreement for the implementation of a joint trolley operation. Maybe to keep it that open, and that lets the parties develop that relationship and return to our commission and obviously your commission to to get those details ironed out, and then return to commission for approval.
And we haven't gotten as far down the path with Surfside, but I know that I've been speaking to commissioners there over the last year about doing the same thing up there. So I don't know if that helps or hurts, or if we do this sort of as a proof of concept of how it can work with another city. I defer to you guys on how.
If I can add a little flavor to that one. In my prior job as the assistant city manager in Surfside, I negotiated a joint use, merging the trolleys with Battle Harbor, North Bay Village, and Surfside all together was a very complicated operation, and it involved Miami-Dade County, who has
that
ultimate
involved
jurisdiction.
going to the county because you were going outside the amount of miles that the county code allowed by law at that point. And at the time, Commissioner Hayman sponsored an ordinance to amend the way that the surtax funds could be used, and since then, that's been amended.
Yeah. So there have been some complications, but
Wow.
Mr. Fernandez is definitely on top of that.
It's an encyclopedia over here.
So if we're okay with the motion.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Commissioner Vice Mayor
We'll
Bott.
show Commissioner Bott as the motion maker.
And add me as a co-sponsor, please.
Will do.
And I'll second.
And second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we're going to, Commissioner,
Are you?
all in favor? Yes, okay. We'll show it past 3-0. Thank you.
Okay, so let's try to clear up some more of these items.
Mr. Chair, real quickly.
Oh.
I just want to thank you all one more time and ask who to follow up with to discuss the hours of the cultural crawl pilot. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Okay,
be a
great.
point person.
Look forward to following up in real time. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
As a co-sponsor, this is so cool. I love it.
We will show Commissioner Fernandez also added as a co-sponsor.
Amazing.
Thank
We're
you.
going to call it the Wheels on the Bus.
Wheels on the bus, I love it.
So let's try to clear up some of the more of these items. C4I.
The FERC item number, I'm sorry?
It's not C.
How about,
No.
okay, call item 20.
The wraparound palm tree lighting on 71st Street.
That would be MB2, discuss extending the wraparound palm tree lighting on 71st Street from east of Normandy Fountain to Collins Avenue, MB2.
Good morning, Jay Fink, Public Works. The item before you is the extension of the wraparound lighting, and similar to areas which had been extended, Washington Avenue, Ocean Drive West, and a few of those others, the same general theory applies here. There is a cost to to do this, $206,000. That does include, as had been previously, not only installation, but also looking for a bid waiver so that this could take place relatively quickly. It would be required to do that. That's the price that's been provided, and that's with the same vendor that had been used doing the other lights throughout the city.
I have questions.
Commissioner Bott.
Is there a possibility to fund any of this through the North Beach CRA funds? I know it's not a permanent installation, but is there some part of it? I don't know if, Maria? I don't know, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but is there I'm gonna put you on the spot. Is there a possibility to fund this kind of lighting for North Beach through the North Beach CRA?
I know there are, if I may, and maybe Maria or Heather are here can speak more to it, but I know there are certain limitations. I'm not sure if this is one of them, but maybe Maria knows.
I don't know all of the details about what the limitations are. I know you don't want to hear this, but we want to start being more strategic with all of our money in the CRA because, you know, we're going to need it for potentially bigger things. So I want to be careful about what we commit in the CRA. I mean, if it's, and with lighting, you know, we always have that issue between permanent versus temporary. So I'd have to get back to you and give you that information. We only have about $1.5 million, I believe, total.
But, right, we only have that now, but 72 Park is coming online
Yes,
this year.
and
And that is
so
gonna be a
is-
big cash infusion
Yes.
this year. And then we've got the 3 other buildings that are already in construction, maybe 4, I don't even remember, which will most likely, God forbid there's a hurricane or something, come online next year. So yes, we're only at $1 million now, but we will be at significantly more by the end of this year and by the end of next year and by the end of the year after that. So I would like to find out what part of this could be defrayed by CRA funds. I agree
Okay.
with being strategic rather than, you know, kind of willy-nilly, which is kind of how
Sure.
we've been approaching it because it's been a small amount of money and small asks. And I would also like, I don't know how to do this properly, but as a companion piece or, you know, extending this to go not only from Collins to Normandy Fountain, but also to go from 75th to 63rd.
Okay.
And, you know, we have seen the difference it makes in the vibe, if you will, the
Yeah.
vibe check.
course.
Even on 41st Street, which is a pretty uninteresting street to drive down. And I say that with all love because that's where I lived for 13 years with my kids. And it just feels like a zippier place to be. And
Yeah.
it just infuses it with the Miami Beach energy. And, you know, if we're doing it there and we're doing it on Washington Avenue and we're doing it on Collins and we're doing it at Limits Park, why on earth are we not giving North Beach the same love? So
Right.
I don't know if we can expand this particular item to do that, or if we need to bring a second and bring it all the way back, or if we can do it as an amendment.
We could also bring it to the North Beach CRA, the group.
Yep.
If I may just to help, it sounds like there's a couple of information requests that are needed. So maybe this item is, we should present it and return to FERC with information on the eligibility of North Beach CRA funding and an updated cost estimate on the expanded space.
And I must say, you know, there was I think there was an item for Washington Avenue.
Yes.
Where I got upset about the cost of the tree lighting and I believe it was Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez's item. And when I go by and walk down Washington, it is stunning.
Yeah,
I mean, what
makes a big difference.
And you know, I can
Is
say
that you
I could
saying
say
on the record that you were wrong about something?
yeah, I could say
Can we
that
please all
it's going to
make
be
a note?
very rare for me to say this, but I was definitely wrong. I think that the tree lighting wraparound in Washington Avenue has made a substantial impact on the neighborhood. I mean, it is iconic on Loomis Park next to Flamingo Park. And next to Flamingo Park and Meridian. I mean, I see all the time people
first items
taking pictures
Yeah.
on Meridian of just how beautiful the tree lighting is. It's year round, and you know what a great little flavor to add to North Beach.
Sure.
And I'll be fully supportive. I mean, it even helps with public safety
Yeah.
and
Just feel
visibility.
safer.
It is a great added benefit. So I want to put on the record that I was wrong about the Washington Avenue lighting. Troy Wright, Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez. So I'm going to be fully supportive of this.
So I have a question about,
Sure.
if this is going, does this go from here in theory to commission to get voted, or does it go?
My recommendation is that would return, because it sounds like there's
Back
two
to
bits of
FERC.
information that.
No, but my point is that, I know that's your recommendation.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm taking it under advisement, but my question is, could it not just come back to commission with those two pieces of information incorporated into it, and then we could just vote on that?
I
if I
believe
may.
you can, however,
You don't know
without
the
knowing exactly what it is that you can spend it on. And also, wouldn't you want the North Beach CRA to weigh in on this?
But couldn't they do that between now and?
I think so. I have
That's
to
what I'm
check the
getting at. Of
calendar.
course, I want the
Mhm.
information before that, and of course, I want North Beach to feel like, to get
Okay.
their input on this. But I would prefer not to delay it by an extra month, so if it's possible to get that information and bring it to the CRA before the commission meeting, the next commission meeting, my suggestion would be, let's just handle it that way, so as to not delay.
So I have a question.
Commissioner Fernandez.
This mentions a bid waiver. And so I just want to make sure, it's a bid waiver, but we're not waiving bids, because is this a company that's already been procured by the city?
That's correct. And attached to the item is the actual breakdown of costs from the proposal. It's a line item breakdown with the,
So rather than treating this as a bid waiver, can't we treat this as an expansion of the contract that the company already has, so that it's not a bid waiver? Or are they part of a pool? Is a company that does this part of a pool that we can tap into?
my understanding, and I'm not the procurement expert here, but my understanding was based on the dollar amount of what we're asking for, it falls under a different bucket of a bid waiver as opposed to being eligible for a contract amendment because of the amount.
Well, if there's a bid waiver to be done, I would say that this is a
And
bid
what-
waiver to be done, because it's already, it's not that we're going out and just tapping a company that's never done work for the city. This is a company that has already done work for the city, I would imagine.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, this company not only did work, they also won this bid competitively before this started, and this is the exact same process that we did for those Washington Ave lights,
So-
which included not only a favorable recommendation, but the bid waiver.
I would want to make sure that, again, just for purposes of optics and transparency, that's explained properly in the memo. Right now, it just mentions a bid waiver, but it doesn't mention the fact.
The history.
That this was indeed, in fact, a competitively bid contract, and that there was an award done through a transparent process. So that just could be explained properly in the contract, in the memorandum.
Will do.
Okay. If I can, sorry, trying to get all this down. So I think now we would have it returning to commission with a favorable recommendation to be considered as part of the FY '26 budget process, the installation of wraparound lights, wraparound palm tree lights as amended locations with a bid waiver, and for information on the cost of the expanded locations and input from the North Beach CRA Advisory Board on funding.
And that I'm a co-sponsor.
You're making that motion?
I'd like to also co-sponsor.
Okay.
And
Can we get everyone?
I'll join as a co-sponsor too.
Kristen? You can-
Sure. There you go.
And through the chair, I think, Jason, you and I can speak offline, but we may need a referral to the CRA Advisory Committee so that they can return a recommendation back to the commission. And actually, it would be a recommendation to the CRA board.
I can make that recommendation. As well as chair, can I do that?
So we'll change it from input to referral too.
Yeah, we need a referral to the North Beach CRA Committee.
And we'll be showing Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez, Fernandez, Bott, and Suarez being added as co-sponsors.
And Fernandez.
Yes, Fernandez. And we'll show Commissioner, Commissioner Bott, you're making that motion?
Yep.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll show it pass 3-0. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Maria. Our CFO says this is going to be a quick item. NB4.
MB4, discuss the potential installation of speed tables on 47th Street in order to reduce traffic speeds and increase safety. MB4.
I move it.
Oh, sorry. And MB4, Commissioner, just be informed that our Commissioner Magazine is requested to be added as a sponsor.
You move it?
Yep.
I'll second. Awesome. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
We'll show the item return to commission with a favorable recommendation to implement the administration's recommendation.
Okay, so.
I'll join as a co-sponsor then. I like that. That area
Thank
has
you.
a lot of cut-through traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah, put me on there too.
Kumbaya, we're going back to being the Kumbaya.
Kumbaya.
Don't
The
jinx it.
Kumbaya committee.
Don't
Okay,
jinx
so
it.
I guess now that we're on beautifying, how about we do OB1, discuss beautifying Washington Avenue by enhancing lighting and streetscaping on Washington Avenue.
What number is that?
OB1, discuss beautifying Washington Avenue by enhancing lighting and streetscaping on Washington Avenue. OB1.
Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez, it's your item.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Again.
Jay. Wait, Jay.
I'm
Before you
sorry.
introduce it, I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on this. I think that both Commissioner Bott and Commissioner Fernandez, I don't know if you saw our presentation on the new sidewalks, that we have iconic sidewalks using pavers. Yes, we have a whole presentation, and I mean, I think overall that as we begin to repave with this beautiful new iconic design that we eventually choose. Are we being asked to choose a design today, Jay? Because I know that the way this was written, we were considering several different types of sidewalk materials, but I think the idea behind this is to use the lighting that they designed, which kind of rings palm trees, correct? And then the pavers.
So through you, Mr. Chairman, I was going to piggyback on exactly where you're going with the presentation that was done by Calvin Giordano and Associates at the Ocean Drive. They did present both lighting, they presented a number of alternatives as far as the sidewalk goes.
Do you want us to pick which one today, or what
That's not-
kind of
that's-
direction do we need to give?
Honestly, that's not my ask. What's explained in the memorandum is, okay, if you do red sidewalks, it's X. If we add a little more, it's Y. We can go all the way up and spend $9 million if you want the Taj Mahal of sidewalks along Washington Avenue. What I think was alluded to in the presentation for Ocean Drive was that there are certain areas between the blocks that looked at how do we highlight those. On the intersections, they're, I don't want to say plain Jane, but it's really utilitarian, and the approach that was taken was to highlight between the intersections. In a conversation with Troy Wright, and he was here earlier, the Washington bid does have their own presentation, and it will be coming through the next commission to, I believe, neighborhoods referral for their areas where they would like to see enhanced, and through some designs that they're contemplating. What the ask really is, and we've talked about it a number of times at this committee, different treatments, different sidewalks, different options. What we'd really like to do is be able to work with the Washington bid so that we can work where they want to enhance certain sidewalk areas, and then really be able to try and get along or move this project along so that it gets done in time for the games that are coming next year. And that's the Washington bid's goal. But there are a few items that we're going to need to probably design minimally as far as ADA compliance. There's some drainage on some of those sidewalks because they're actually lower than the street level. So I really don't want to choose something today.
How long do you need? Okay, so this would be my motion. Do you need more than a month? Do you need 2 months to negotiate with to sit down with the bid and find out what they're recommending?
As quick as the bid can get in front of the commission to present their view and visions and sort of their ask as far as the cost would be associated with that, because all of that's coming out of that GO bond pocket for the $10 million.
Okay, so then I would suggest that you sit down with the bid, show them all the patterns. I know that, is Troy here? He was here earlier.
He was here, unfortunately he had to go.
And then come back to us when you've picked something. that you like with the budget and with the lighting. And, you know, I would recommend that you use, and I think you will, this new study that we commissioned, because now we know which sidewalk material is best. We found out that it's pavers. We could design the pavers. And then from there, we can, you know, bring it to the HPB so that they can also opine. But I think that this is going to be defining for Washington Avenue. It's going to be iconic. It is going to be unique. It's going to set them apart in terms of sidewalks. Once you see, you know, the new lighting down the center, the lighting on the palm trees, and these brand new sidewalks, it is going to brand Washington Avenue and show the world that we care about our historic districts, that we care about preservation. And this investment is going to go a long way, putting our, you know, money where our mouths is and just, you know, walking the walk instead of talking about it. And this will be our first serious investment in Washington Avenue. The first of what I hope are many serious, significant investments across our historic districts in Miami Beach after many years of what I think was a managed decline and neglect. So it's an exciting moment. That would.
So if I may, Vice Mayor Bott? Sorry.
Yeah, and I would like to, you know, I've got an item, I believe, coming up on the April agenda about doing, you know, contemplating doing something like this for North Beach as well, and not necessarily the same pattern that gets selected, but, and we need to figure out who's paying for it, because there's some question about, is it CRA, is it potentially the CRA, is it FDOT, is it the city? We need to figure that out, and I know there are documents floating around that are being reviewed, but you know, maybe as we look at costs, there is, you know, it won't be necessarily installation because it's going to be at a different time frame, but, you know, we've done the walkthrough on Collins Avenue going from 63rd up to 75th, and we know that the same conditions exist of problems, and so if there's an economy of scale that they get looked at, evaluated, and addressed at the same time, maybe not executed at the same time, but the engineering work happens at the same time, and when people figure out what they're going to need to buy to implement the pavers, like, let's think about it again holistically so that we're not, you know, the vendor doesn't come back and say, oh, I wish you told me this a year ago because I would have done the work at the same time for half the cost, because that will make me very sad. And it's not good for our budget concerns that we know we're facing.
So,
Wait till we have a residential on Washington Avenue.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. So this is before us today. Is this the timeline for this? Did the city have a program to move with this now? Explain that to me.
There's no necessarily program. This is being funded through the GeoBond project.
Okay. So we have the funding for it.
Funding is available.
Okay. And let me ask you this, because we're going to, as Commissioner Suarez mentioned, there's the Washington Avenue residential component. And in the past, like for example, the beach walk. The beach walk didn't always look as beautiful as it does now. Some would say before it looked more beautiful. I think it looks beautiful now. But it was through development agreements with the historic hotels where they came in and they did their portion of the beach walk as they were improving the hotels. And then the city came in and filled the gaps between them. In fact, Mayor Bauer was a big part of that history over time. With Washington Avenue, with the residential incentives that we have in place, or that we're looking to put in place, does it make sense for us to use all of our GOB dollars when we might potentially be able to get private development to help cover some of this cost?
No, Commissioner, you're exactly right. I mean, one of the things that we would look to do, and I'm sure the bid would feel the same way, is look at where those planned or programmed developments that could possibly happen, and do we skip, you know, sort of that block so that when they do redevelop it, it takes care of the initial installation cost rather than putting it in and they either have to redo it or rip it up.
Yeah, incorporating it as part of the work that they need to do, so that we get to save some of that money. I would also like, and it's related to this because it relates to Washington Avenue, but it goes back to the investments we make on Washington Avenue using the taxpayers' dollars, but making sure that as we're using the taxpayers' dollars,
that we're seeing a meaningful improvement on Washington Avenue. And to me, that meaningful improvement means that nuisance uses that contribute to the problems that we've experienced in the past on Washington Avenue are being phased out. And one of the things I would like staff to do is that as those nuisance uses close up, we should be notified of it. Because I really do want to say, we just invested on the lights, and the lights are great, but I had an issue of using the taxpayers' dollars to invest in a street where I did not feel that the property owners were coming forward and being good property owners. That they've been bringing in bad tenants that are contributing to the ailments that we're trying to fix in our city. So as we make these investments, I want to be getting updates as to what changes, the city is making changes to improve the street, but what changes are the private property owners doing to improve the streets? Are they getting rid of the bad uses that are contributing to the crime and the issues we've seen in the past? Because that is going to be shaping a lot of my decisions on the investments that I commit my vote to in the future as it relates to Washington Avenue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Fernandez, would you be more, and I've walked the blocks between Lincoln Road and 15th Street, and they are in desperate need of an upgrade. Why don't we start there and just do those 2 blocks with this new iconic design? It will be the first time that we've ever done it, a patterned design. Let's start there. That's not going to be so expensive. That way we can see what the lighting looks like. We can see what the pavers look like. It's not the entire street, but at least we're fixing something that is right now not just blighted, but I would say dangerous in many places, because as I walk down that portion of Washington, there is a lot of uneven material that needs to get fixed. And this could be an opportunity to beautify a block that most people say is where crime is committed, where it's an intersection that does need help. So why don't we just start there and do those 2 blocks from Lincoln Road to 15th? That's where I think we should start. Do 2 blocks, 2 blocks, east and west, and then come back to us, sit down with a bid.
That's reasonable.
Come back with 2 or 3 designs, and let's start there.
But just, doesn't the Lincoln Road East proposal contemplate getting rid of, not getting rid of it, but closing off Washington Avenue through?
It contemplates closing off Lincoln Road between Washington and Collins.
Right, so I don't want to put in pavers on between, well, it would start on Lincoln Road, correct?
I don't think it'll be affected. I think.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it jives well.
So then my motion is to do the 2 blocks, 17th to 15th. Come back next month, because it's not a big thing, with a couple, after you speak with Troy, come back with a few options for us to look at that we can choose from, and bring it back to, do you want to bring it back to finance, or do you want to refer the 2 blocks? My motion would be to just refer them to the full commission, because it's not the whole street.
You're saying
it's just 2
15th
blocks.
to 17th?
Yeah, just 15th to
15th
17th, and let the whole commission decide.
I mean, I would say, honestly, I would go, if we're gonna go up to 17th, what I would do, rather than 17th, I would do Lincoln Road South.
Okay, so do do Lincoln to, that's what I was saying, Lincoln to, it goes Lincoln 16th, 15th, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't go
Let's
north.
do Lincoln to 15th, that's what I
Yeah,
meant.
that's-
15th to Lincoln.
Right.
15th to Lincoln. So that would be my motion, and I would give, I would recommend it to the April commission meeting, giving us a few, the design that we can pick.
I think, I would like to come back to finance, considering that our chair is not here. And so that way he can at least chime in on it. I'm okay with referring it back to finance and doing it.
That's not my motion. My motion, because, let me explain why. Because finance is about looking at the amounts, and we will have that opportunity. The funding is already there. And frankly, we go in circles and circles, and this is only 2 blocks. It's a wonderful investment. I know that it's going to beautify. I know how worried you are about public safety in that area. This is just an opportunity to beautify. It's just the east and west. It's 2 blocks, the east and west side of the avenue. So my motion would be to refer it back to the commission with a favorable recommendation. I don't know how you feel about that, Commissioner Bott.
So it's to return to the commission with a favorable recommendation to direct administration to implement sidewalk improvements on Washington Avenue from Lincoln Road to 15th.
We don't even know what the materials are going to be yet, right? I mean, it's not fully
No,
baked.
we absolutely do. We had a presentation at an Ocean Drive meeting. Most of us were present.
But not here, though.
You can get a briefing in the interim from Jay and everyone else. It was a great study that you should really see.
Yeah, but it wasn't a
because what the
sunshine
city
meeting.
did was vet all the different types of sidewalk materials. It was a sunshine meeting, yes, it was scheduled. It's actually, you can read the copy of the report between now and then. So I know that Commissioner Fernandez was there, so was Commissioner Magazine. Pardon? And Commissioner Bott, yes, I said it. Yeah, no, Commissioner Bott was there, and you can see that we've already determined via this study which is the most resilient type of sidewalks that we can display. And the beauty of these sidewalks is that not only are they interchangeable, but they're super resilient. And it's kind of the same material that we're using on the beach walk, only they have different iconic designs that we can choose from. In addition to that, we are not doing the street corners. We're just doing sidewalks in between the street corners because that's where all the electrical connections and all of the other stuff is. So I don't see why we really need to beat this.
Madam Mayor, is there something you'd like to say?
I'm sorry, don't ever invite me here again.
I love it.
I think it's a wonderful idea, and I just want to tell you that Leonard Horowitz, that came with Barbara Kapitman, did 2 blocks. I think it was 2 blocks also. It could have been 1, but I think it was 2, to show how, and we used to have a picture. We did gave money to the people that rented or owned this thing to renovate the facade renovation. I'm surprised I remember all this. Facade renovation. And when the people saw how it changed the street by doing that, and they were all different and all very nicely, people got very enthused. And Lynn Bernstein was the one that was working with us then at Miami Beach Development Corporation, went and sold it to everybody. It was a matching grant. So people do get very enthused, and people do better when they are dressed in code. And the same thing happens when the street changes and they see, they're very visual. So I really support this in a pilot.
I think you sold me.
But I don't
Madam Mayor.
know if you pick one design or not. That it's out of my hand.
Well, I guess that moves me, so I'll be in favor as well.
Okay, and I talked to Public Works
Mayor Bauer to get here?
That's all it takes.
and when this comes to commission, some of that
Sure.
hashing up the specificity will have.
Okay, and I'll second it.
Okay, so we'll show.
Meet with the bid and just send it to the full commission with choices, okay? Final choices,
Okay,
right?
I show Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez making the motion and Commissioner
I'll
Suarez
second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, show it pass 3-0.
Okay, so let's clear up some more beautifying Miami Beach with some trees, which we're all in favor of. So can we call multiple items up? That's been up.
You mentioned
They're all
trees.
sort of similar.
Items 7, 10, and 11 were noted to be linked and would be heard together.
Yeah.
If you want to have it. Okay, so I'm gonna give me a moment as I read them into the record.
Yes, please.
MB7, referral to the Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee to discuss take action to fund expanding the North Beach Tree Planting Pilot Program to additional parking spaces located at 78th, 79th, and 80th Streets or other potential locations. That's MB7. MB10, Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee discussion to take action on the favorable Public Safety Neighborhood Quality of Life Committee recommendation to expand the tree canopy North Beach through a multidisciplinary firm for 2 main thoroughfares such as Abbott Avenue or Dickens Avenue and explore Parkview Island with associated funding. MB10 and then MB11 referral to the Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee to discuss the appropriate mechanism to fund a transformative tree canopy project in targeted areas throughout Miami Beach. MB11. Thank you.
Okay.
So
I think we have multiple sponsors on this. We have the tree canopy in North North Beach, expanding it through multidisciplinary approach. NB10, we have NB7, expanding the pilot program for the planters in North Beach, and then we have NB11. That's
a
generally
few-
everywhere in Miami Beach.
I have a few questions, but so these items work in conjunction with each other. As everybody knows, we have large portions of our city that have no trees and shading whatsoever. And it's costly to drill through the concrete and figure out how to plant trees so people have shade. Now, we did do a pilot program on 78th and 79th. Before we even, and I'm not ceding my time, I'm just asking a question. How are those trees doing that we planted on 78th? I mean, are they thriving? Are they?
Sure, we actually have photos for you, and we
Okay.
can show them.
So we tried to plant on our own with the city, and I'm not saying that they didn't look great, but it wasn't really what I think that we need to be doing in terms of transformative planting. And we know that in order to transform it, we need like $15 million. And I would say that $15 million is not even enough money. So this is two things. There's your item, Commissioner Suarez, which is a feasibility study, which is, I guess, the initial study that we would need. And then there's the item of actually putting something on the ballot and asking our residents to vote for trees and shade in a meaningful way. So it's twofold. Because we need we're saying 15 million for trees. I would tell you that a feasibility study is going to come back and say that we need $30 million to green this area. Why do we want to green the area, Commissioner Fernandez? Because when you look between, oh, you're not? It's just so expensive to do one parking garage.
But why does it have to be on a ballot?
Yeah.
I mean, if you can, because I think we need to bond out money for this. I think that we actually need to issue a debt unless you can find, the 15 or $30 million. We have all of our other capital projects are underfunded right now. They're completely underfunded, and I'm not going to try to pretend like we're going to find the money when when we're going to have all of our pay-go funds are going to have to be used to fund all these other projects that are in the pipeline. I think trees need their own. If you want transformation, then it needs to be its own serious funding mechanism, and it's going to be expensive. I saw that in my memo it says $15 million. That's just for one. How much is that? That's not for the entire city. That's just for that one area of North Beach, correct?
Before you answer that, Amy, I'd like to vote to extend the meeting for another 15 minutes.
Okay, I'm fine with 15 minutes because I waited 6 months to get these tree items. Her trees are not sexy. There is no building involved. There's not a lot of money involved. The only thing involved with tree, we're voting yes?
Yeah, we have to extend the meeting. It ends at
Oh,
now.
yes, I vote to extend the meeting.
Meeting is
Yes.
extended to 1:45. Thank you.
And so I would propose that, that we put this on the ballot because what we found, and I've been working on this for years, 78th and 79th Street, when we don't spend significant amount of money and figure out how to cut through the concrete to plant the trees, what we got was kind of a mishmash. And it is so expensive because it was poorly planned. And these are areas where we don't have canopy bus. First of all, there is zero tree canopy. We have seniors, a lot of our multifamily residents. In affluent areas, they have beautiful tree canopy areas. But in some of our, more humble areas of the city, there isn't a tree to be found anywhere. And
Commissioner Rosenthal.
and that's something that we should all be dedicated to.
I don't think anyone here is against the trees. I sponsored an item. You sponsored an item. I think Commissioner Vice
I
Mayor
just don't
Bott
want people to be
sponsored an item,
shocked when we say, let's put this on the ballot, because I really do think that that's what we need to do.
I don't necessarily think we should be. I don't think we want to set a precedent of putting projects on a ballot to bond out. I think let's find the money in any which way possible, and make it happen through the Finance Committee. I think that's the right approach. Look, if we have to tighten our belt a little bit, look, and another thing, when you go down Meridian Avenue, that is probably one of the most iconic streets in America. I mean, it's always like 15 degrees cooler. It's beautiful during the day. It's beautiful. It's even more beautiful during the night. North Beach should have something like that. And lo and behold, there's a huge project pending in North Beach right now. I hope the people who are watching, looking at this, maybe that is something that can be funded to really invest in North Beach. If you're going to be set to put a big project in North Beach, this is a fundamental generational investment in the community of North Beach. Just an idea. But I don't think I'd be in favor of putting on a ballot. I think there's definitely many more ways that we can attack this approach. So, Amy, if you can discuss, there's the pilot planters, correct? Was that an effective program? Because the last, you have some pictures, right?
Sure.
Maybe maybe PJ, maybe can we show the pictures of the pilot planters?
Sure. And good afternoon. For a sense of history too, these, we're kind of calling them tree pits. They're very different because normally you wouldn't just dig a pit in the ground and put a tree. But I think, Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez was trying to be very innovative and just see like, might this work? Because no one wants to give up parking. And that is kind of one of the biggest challenges in North Beach is that the streets are very small, they're very dense, there's a lot of buildings, and there's not a lot of open space. And we have, small sidewalks that are barely wide enough for ADA requirements. So we did something kind of innovative. So PJ, if you want to show that slide, you can see how the trees are doing. We planted 6 satin leaves in sort of the triangular areas. At the diagonal parking. Public Works did that in-house. It was a pretty big effort for them. They had to take a look and take a look at the underground infrastructure, even broke some old pipes. They had to, cut into the concrete, create all the different mechanisms. So if you go back one slide, you can see the trees. There's 6 in the ground. And it's hard to see them in front of, with the words. It's also in your packet. They're doing okay. We wouldn't say that they're thriving. It's been about a year and a half. And right now they're looking a little sad because it's the dry season. In the next couple months, we would be able to see how they're doing. We never expected these trees to thrive and become really nice canopy trees. What we expected is they would provide some short-term vegetative relief. So in how they were planted, we think they're doing about as expected. Do we expect them to be 15-year big canopy trees? Probably not.
So, if you want to be a little bit more visionary thinking, I guess the NB10 where you have the tree canopy in North Beach.
Yeah.
That's something. No, where are we with that? Is that?
So, sure. So for this one here, the commissioner had asked we look at another option. So instead of doing the tree pits, we would actually do these, but doing underground infrastructure and doing less of them. So that was another proposal we actually put through the item. And that would be about $180,000 to expand what we currently have or add more underground infrastructure, and that would be like $1 million. But we'd have to give up some parking. So that's for this particular item. So we gave a couple of options.
And how many trees?
I have to leave. I'm not in love with the tree pit idea simply because it was a little bit awkward and I don't think transformative enough. I don't really care if you guys want to do the tree pits. I'm on board with it. I'm on board for anything that would actually green the area a little bit. I'm also in favor of the feasibility study. I have to leave right now, even after all of this. I can see that you're not on board for the bond idea, so I will.
We'll fund the money. We just don't have to put it on a ballot.
Okay, all right. I think that, I don't know. I mean, that's fine. I don't know how you're going to find the money. It's been hard. A year and a half ago, we passed an item to plant some trees in a parking lot. That has not been done yet, just to practice. I don't know where that item is in the pipeline. I wish that the item had been heard, but it was not.
Okay. So I just think from my perspective, if you're borrowing money over 20 to 30 years to plant trees that may not even last that long, hopefully they do, but you don't know that they would. I mean, usually you want that money for hard projects, roads, buildings, our infrastructure system.
It's not ideal, and I think we had extra money
look.
for this.
We
We can look. I mean, you can bring it back next month and find ways that we can fund the $15 million. That would be my motion.
For purposes of transparency, part of the reason why I can't support this is that I'm separately working with staff, with the attorneys at looking at a housing affordability bond. And for me, that's like something that is more in line with some of our pressing needs
I know the trees are a pressing need, but I think we have other revenue sources that we could use for that, including grants that we might be able to apply for.
So could my motion on this item be that it comes back next month and Jason can find the $15 million for the transformative tree canopy, like Commissioner Suarez and Commissioner Fernandez
I think he's
are
gonna need more than a
suggesting?
month.
2 months?
I think he's gonna need more than a month, and like.
That's
We might need
fine.
money
Like-
seeds
Explore,
for that money
explore
tree.
Vice Mayor Bott.
So, Jason, can you start buying printing ink for the printer in the basement so we can just print
If I
money?
can, just to.
But I actually have a serious thing. So, you know, we all want trees for a lot of very real reasons, like the cooling mechanism and walkability and, you know, North Beach has no trees except until you get to the park, basically. Literally Parkview Island is called Parkview Island and there's nothing, there are no trees there, except for the little tiny green space that was created in 2016, transformed into this lovely park. So that, kudos to that. But and I think Commissioner Fernandez is exactly right. And we have bigger, more pressing issues. We have pipes that are failing. 80% of our pipes citywide are at or about to be at failure, give or take 75%, 80%. Trees are incredibly important for many, many reasons, but I'm not sure that I'm willing at this point, when we know that we're looking at a tough budget year, to spend $15 or $30 million from our budget where it doesn't currently exist to try to do something which will have to take away parking from residents in North Beach, which, lest anybody forget, is a drama that you can't even imagine. I mean, we've tried this pilot program that seems to be working okay, but there are a lot of problems with it. We're losing a parking garage for a while. The people who live up in 87th, 78th, 87th, all the way in that quarter, don't even, you know, can't realistically avail themselves of the parking garages at 72nd or 67th. So street parking, you know, for people who can't walk great distances is a huge issue. And I'm really concerned that unless we look at this really holistically, like what does it do to parking? What does it do to transit mobility? What does it do to, you know, does it help speed things, slow traffic down? Maybe it's a traffic calming measure some way or another. But I'm not ready at this point to just say, okay, let's get trees planted, let's find it, because I think there's so many other interrelated issues that we're not addressing at this point. And there are 3 items, and I would say let's defer it for a month or 2 and have them kind of be merged together into one feasibility study and say, here's what we could do, here's how it's going to affect parking. It might have the benefit of slowing down traffic where people are speeding. You know, is there an opportunity to reach out to property owners and say, would you like us to plant a tree on your lot? Because that might be an option. They're not huge lots, but they're little, you know, they're little yards, and a lot of them are paved over. So what if we did a collaborative program with property owners saying, we will, you know, you pay the cost for the tree and we'll provide the labor, whatever that might be, and that might be an option. But I don't think we're there yet.
Okay, so how about, Jason?
If I can, because you're right, there's a number of items that are
Right.
that are here.
It
One of
does
the
make
items,
sense to consolidate.
right? Well, yeah. There's one item if they wanted to do the tree pits, around $180,000 to put this in. The one item which I think you might be landing on is the master plan, which is I think is the 10th one.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be a master plan, it would be a feasibility analysis, and this is in response to your item, Commissioner Suarez, to bring a multidisciplinary firm in and take a look at where we can get trees. It becomes a transportation issue, it becomes a right-of-way issue.
So it's a holistic
yes.
approach.
So we estimated about $250,000, which could be considered for next year's budget process. And we're looking at certain corridors, because that was your request, was to look at these, you know, certain areas. And that is really kind of where we're at there.
That's a lot of money. I don't know.
But this might be a thing that we could defer until we know who's coming on board for Blue Zones. Because again, Blue Zones is all about green, walking, safety, public rights of way that are more user-friendly. This is deep in the wheelhouse of Blue Zones. So maybe there's somebody who would come on and say, you know what, we would like to sponsor the cost of the study. And if we do it this month versus in 6 months from now,
It's not gonna make a difference, yeah.
It's not gonna make a difference.
I'm okay with deferring this for the next 6 months.
So we'll show
Give plenty of time.
So we'll show all 3 items were heard and to be returned in 6 months.
Great.
Thank you. We're out of time unless there's an
I
extension.
think we got 1 more minute, and so how about just 5 more minutes? I'd like to extend the meeting.
Jason, what was that, what were those three items that were called?
7, 10, and 11.
What, not, OB or NB?
MB 7, 10, and 11, we're going to show as heard, and we'll return in 6 months' time.
And then let's do last but not least, NB 20.
Okay, so let me read that in. NB 20, referral to discuss adding infertility treatment as a plan for a benefit for plan participants insured under the city's self-funded health insurance plan.
Thank you,
Commissioner
Mr. Chair.
Fernandez. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm proud to sponsor this item because I believe it touches on something that's deeply human, and that is our ability as a city and as an employer to support the dignity and the dreams of our workforce. And so today we're beginning a conversation about modernizing our self-funded health plan to include to include fertility benefits. And this is more than just a medical coverage adjustment. I believe it's a reflection of who we are as an employee and how we value the personal journeys of our employees. Recently, over the past few months, I heard from many members of our workforce, but specifically a city employee who suffered a miscarriage. And after she sought answers, and she was looking for testing, she was looking for diagnosis, anything that might help her understand what happened and what to expect in the future of her reproductive journey. But because our plan doesn't cover infertility-related services, once a diagnosis is suspected, she was left without support that she needed during that very vulnerable journey. And I think anyone who is experiencing anything like this should be covered by our health insurance. And that story is not unique. It underscores the limitations of our current policy, which unintentionally, I believe, withholds care when it's most needed for a lot of the members of our workforce. And it's something we don't hear about a lot because it is kind of like a taboo issue. People won't generally come and speak up about miscarriages. People won't come up and speak about whether they have low sperm counts or not. It's something that is deeply personal. But the fact that people aren't speaking about it doesn't mean that they haven't been touched by it and that they don't need medical coverage for it. So by updating our plan to include fertility benefits such as diagnostic testing, IVF, and other related services, we're not only responding to real needs of our workforce, but also positioning the city of Miami Beach as a competitive employer. And that is a very important public purpose in here because we do want to continue standing out as a good place to work at. Cities and private employers across the country are recognizing that inclusive family building support is not just a benefit, but it's also a strategic advantage in the workforce market. So I want to recognize our Human Resources Assistant Director to take it from here. They've been doing some tremendous research on how we can support our workforce and also be competitive by offering this type of benefit in our plans.
Good afternoon, committee members, commissioners. My name is Lorena Bravo. I'm the Assistant Director for HR. I'm here on behalf of the department and the Director, Malar Pizar, who could not be here at this meeting today. Like the commissioner pointed out, I think fertility has been at the forefront of discussion at the federal level, at the state level, and for most employers in terms of how to recognize the fact that Americans are having fewer children, they're having children later in life, and that age being a factor, age is a factor in fertility. It's affecting their ability to procreate naturally. And so if they have a goal to build their family, they're having to grapple with the cost of relying on alternative reproductive therapies. If you, I mentioned the federal and the state level. Recently, the administration issued an executive order in February seeking guidance to explore how fertility could be a covered benefit through insurance. At the state level, there's a bill pending seeking to add fertility preservation to the state group health insurance plan. And so it's something that's very avant-garde and, you know, it's seen to invest in employees.
What's the fiscal impact? Is there any?
Sure. So our third-party administrator, Cigna, estimates that adding infertility treatment coverage will increase 1 to 2% above our claim level. So it would add 1 to 2% of claims, and then it would also affect our individual stop loss expenditure to the tune of about $76,000 a year. There's a small increment.
And what is a 1 to 2%?
2% of claims on a yearly basis would translate to about $576,000.
Out of how many claims total in general do we have?
I think this year we're projecting, as of the data available at the end of January, we're projecting claims of $28.9 million.
And is this something that is it set in stone? Is it moving forward? Is this something, you know, let's say no one takes advantage of it, can we pull it back in a couple of years? Or is this forever?
As a self-funded plan, you have total control over the benefits that you add to your plan. I thought the purpose of this referral was to initiate the dialogue on whether you would consider enhancing the plan.
I'll second it. And I will say just, you know, insurance in this country is super complicated. I'm not going to weigh in on that, but I will say, just for the record, I had to go to urgent care a couple of weeks ago. One of the many times I had the flu or whatever was floating around. And the doctor, who is great, said that he doesn't take our insurance because he gets paid $15 per visit because of Cigna. And so that, you know, Cigna has room to maneuver. And I don't know if you can negotiate what the benefits are and how much they charge us for adding new benefits, but their profit margin is quite thick. And so, you know, if there's anything you can do. You know, but I move it, I mean, I second it, and I would suggest call the vote.
Yeah, and just quickly, direct fiscal impact, is there a direct fiscal impact to our budget with this?
Well, it would certainly add the estimated amount to your plan costs.
It's us, not our budget.
What's that?
It's us as employees who are
Right,
under this.
exactly. So, but just for the public knowledge, because we had this discussion in my office, directly to the city's budget, there's no direct impact. It's to the fund.
Right. You have reserves that you could utilize to pay for the 1 to 2% increase over.
Let's call the vote.
Okay. So this would return, so if I may, return to the commission with a favorable recommendation to add infertility treatment as a benefit to plan participants insured under the city's self-funded health plan. It would have to be made, the motion would have to be made by Commissioner Bott and seconded by the chair, David Suarez. Yep. All in favor?
Can we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Bott?
Yes.
Commissioner Suarez?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.